Well, everybody, so I talked to you guys about this morning. This Nimicry, Nim, is my extra hard lefty buddy. We're gonna discuss the election. We're gonna discuss all of the goings on, and again, I just want to remind you guys. Ooh, 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 ooh,
Had
communist.
gotta throw my credentials up there. You know how it is.
We're gonna discuss all of the goings on. We're gonna try and I don't know, see both sides of this in some sort of way, because right now there is a definite path for Donald Trump to win. It looks like he's going to have the remaining 3 swing states, and he's only 8,000 votes behind in Nevada, with all states basically saying they're done counting right for today. They're not going to finish until tomorrow. With that, though, if Biden takes Nevada, and it looks like he's taken Michigan and Wisconsin, all of this pauses because the reality is Donald Trump's already announced lawsuits in like 4 different states now. All of this pauses, but Biden definitely is cutting off that path to win. There's still a path for both. There really is, but it's going to be close. I don't think either side's going to accept it. What do you think?
As for either side accepting it, we do know that there were messages, internal communications from Hillary Clinton to the Biden campaign saying, under no circumstances should you concede. And in general, in a contentious election, which this is absolutely a contentious election, which I also want to mention, for the first time in my life, voter turnout is up across the entire spectrum. Not just one demographic has been activated, but from mail-in to in-person and all the age range and demographics, it's been up. But no, I don't. I think that both campaigns, depending on whatever outcome, if it's negative, there will be very many contentious court cases. I talked to you beforehand. I'm gonna go with 40. I'm gonna think there's gonna be 40 challenges. I figure some states are okay, but like most of them are gonna be like, nah, we're gonna challenge this.
That I'm aware of. We're setting at 10% of that number, anyways. Like we talked about, there's Wisconsin. They're demanding a recount in Wisconsin. There is Michigan. They're wanting them to recount those at bare minimum, because apparently they kicked poll watchers out. There's Pennsylvania, and it's looking like Arizona is going to be another one.
Okay. And again, there are. So one of the interesting things, and I want to ask you, just maybe let's talk about it philosophically here. When it comes to election procedure, every
Mhm.
state has their own board and has their own protocols and laws and regulations and so on and so forth. Do you think it would be a good idea to maybe harmonize them across state? Meaning,
Yes.
okay, so yeah, I was gonna say instead of having state X has a caucus and then counts mail-in ballots early, and then state Y is primary and has they don't count until the day after the election, where it's like, okay, this is the process, we do the process, and
See, my
obviously.
idea, my idea is to nationalize, quote unquote, nationalize the entire process. But the way I want to do it is to bring it from 1776 into 2020, and that is to say, every state, or I'm sorry, let me take that back. Let me walk that back. 30 plus states, bare minimum, have information printed into a barcode on the back of your driver's license. Every human on the planet has a cell phone capable of being a QR reader.
Basically, yeah.
You can create some sort of blockchain encryption for every driver's license that's registered and use your phone as a blockchain encrypted voting booth. I've been pitching this idea to Texas representatives and various app developers for a year now, and everybody seems to go, but we
You might
like
have
it.
you might have luck with Pete Buttigieg. After all, he invented the app that counted the results in Iowa and somehow declared victory before any polls reported. So check with Pete Buttigieg. He might
That
be interested.
that was a complete disaster, though.
Yeah, no, it was. But I'll tell you what, he's definitely interested in counting and reporting.
But if we're
But
talking about the procedure in total, that's where some of these problems are coming up, especially in Pennsylvania. And that's where some of the problem with mail in voting is coming up. Like, we have a declared voting day in the Constitution, but people are wanting to accept votes that are either postmarked late or just have no postmark.
So I disagree with accepting things late. So let's hypothetically say, I pull up this is an envelope, right? Let's say this is
Hmm.
an envelope. Okay. Oh, well, this envelope is postmarked you know, uh November 2nd. Okay, that is fine. We're before the deadline. Oh, it's postmarked November 4th. Well, we vote on November 3rd. I can't go vote in person late. Ergo, you can't mail it late. Now, if you get it, if it's postmarked November 3rd, which is our election day, okay, that's fine. You just like in person voting, which I did yesterday. I was the first one at the polls. I had my mask and everything, and I took my fiance. We had I don't want to say a lovely time, but as far as government services and interaction with the city of Milford, Ohio, it was the least painful one I've had. So that's that. And I attend some of their city council meetings, and you would not believe some of the stuff they say. But that's a whole nother story.
Well, I think that's where the problem is right now. Is like, so first off, we have an entire class, the journalist class, who is running through this and they are dying because they put all of their faith in the pollster class of people, the people who's the wizards who come up with the predictions and all of this, who are flat out wrong by historic margins this election. If Joe Biden wins, Joe Biden is going to win by one state. It's
I
not
will
going to be
mention
the blue wave.
I will mention that in the election night coverage, there was Joe Rogan and Kyle Kalinske, Tim Dillon. Kyle Kalinske brought up a point that Joe Biden is underperforming what the polls had said. Now, I do want to ask you, Rabbit, have you ever answered polls by any chance?
Nobody has ever called me.
I have, and I will tell you how it went. I got called by the Democratic Party of Ohio, and they asked me like, "Hey, do you have 20 minutes to answer some questions?" Yeah, sure. And this is 2019, beginning of it. They're farming stuff out, and they were like, "Do you have a positive opinion of X?" No, I don't, and here's why. And every time I would go into here's why, that would be like, "Oh, well, thank you for your input. Moving on." And it's not ever acknowledged, because a lot of my thing was, do you have a positive opinion of the mayor of Dayton? She was thinking about running at some point in the Democratic primary, and my answer was, yeah, she's nice, great that she wants to do green energy. I have a degree in renewable energy engineering, but give me some specifics. Let me know. That's great that you're for jobs. I love that. Everybody says they're for jobs. Devil's in the detail. You gotta let me know, what are you gonna do specifically? Like, give me something to hang my freaking headphones on. It doesn't have to be fully fleshed out, of course, but like, I don't know, maybe go to step 2. Step 1 is jobs. Step 2 is,
But
well,
they
where are
don't
they?
care about none of that, right? They
Well, of
just
course
want
not.
your yes or no answer.
Of course, and that's the problem. That is a problem with polling, especially as the generations become more and more informed. The millennial generation, the Zoomer generation are the most politically informed of any generation that has ever been. We're the most highly educated. We are the least bullshit. This is not 1996 where I can be like, "All right, sir, I'm a upstanding politician, and let me roll up my sleeves here, take off my thing, and get to work." That doesn't work anymore. It's not 1996.
Well, I mean, on the other side of that, we have the whole we have all of our social media, we have all of our cancel culture, and we have a definite sense that Jesus Christ, my messenger just went off in the background and it binged in my headphones and I'm sure it came across.
I heard it.
And
If I heard it, it was loud for you.
yeah, it was like my train of thought went.
Yeah, no, yeah, you were mentioning something about cancel culture, social media.
Yeah, we,
Um,
we have cancel culture. What is the odds that anybody's going to okay, we're gonna fix this. We're
yeah,
gonna
no,
fix this right now.
take a second there, because I heard it again, and I'm like, I know that you're a busy man. Obviously, one of those moguls moving and shaking. But at some point, you got to be able to focus.
We are gonna fix this right now. That is super annoying. I didn't think that was on in the background. We have people not answering the polls accurately. Number one, and number two, why are we polling people as if it was still the 1990s? And why are we not, like, why do you think we're seeing the demographic shifts that we are? Like, we're seeing historic black, Latino, homosexual, etc. voter turnout for Republicans, and we're seeing those losses shift towards the Democratic side. The left is going too far left, and they're circling around.
I disagree with the left going too far left. I 100% disagree with that, because if you look, if you well, we'll take a look at our at the potential vice president's campaign. Kamala Harris originally started off as Bernie Sanders, but a woman type thing, and she was very progressive for Medicare for all, did all these things. Then she became more corporate. The Hillary advisors came in, and she started dropping in the polls. Then Tulsi Gabbard decided to show everybody she had a glass jaw at a debate, which was boom, boom, boom.
I saw that.
And then Anderson Cooper was like, "Excuse me, why don't you sit down and watch this clip again where you got politically destroyed?" And she's just looking there. And here's the thing: is we have to understand that there's a difference. There's different types of left policy, just like there's different types of right policy. There's social left, there's economic left, there's lefty policy advocacy in philosophy. So, for example, Kamala Harris isn't going up there and being like, "I read Das Kapital volumes 1, 2, and 3 over the weekend, and I believe we should do Marxist-Leninism." She's not doing that. She's not even for Medicare for all. She's not for universal health care. She's not for universal college. She's not for ending the wars. And people will say that I often joke, and I joked on Twitter the other day, was like, I wish I could vote for the radical left version of Joe Biden, that people fearmonger him, because that guy sounds pretty cool, but Joe Biden is essentially a moderate Republican. We must remember he wrote the 1994 crime bill, which helped lock up a generation of African Americans with an 85%. In fact, Jadakiss had said, why do brothers have to do 85% of the time? Well, Joe Biden, Bill Clinton, right there. They wrote that for the war on drugs in order to pander for fear.
That is true, but right now Joe Biden's current policy is built in tandem with Bernie Sanders, where he wants to do things like outlaw semi-automatic firearms, outlaw the online sale entirely of all weapons and accessories, completely strip the 2A, completely stripping 2A down, number one. Number two, he wants to push towards a green economy, and has point blank said in the debates that he wants to phase out oil, but he wants to do it over 2 terms of a presidency instead of 50 years.
So here's a question for you. I got to ask. The Democratic platform, right? There's the platform. The platform in 2016 had a lot of progressive ideals, right? Nobody fought for them outside of a couple of people, your Pramila Jayapal, Raul Grava, Senator Bernie Sanders, but they were on the platform to say they're there. Then they were ignored. The Unity Council that was put together had mostly Hillary staffers and a couple of token Bernie picks. In fact, one of the more senior members, who was more amicable to Senator Sanders' positions, was actually extricated. He was gone. I forget his name. It's rolling back there, but it's been a while. And he was on the DNC's leadership panel for 30 years. And he's like, yeah, I like Bernie. And then they were like, okay, well, we're going to transition out of here. But as for Joe Biden getting rid of guns and stripping the Second Amendment down, I don't know that that's actually going to happen, because for all the fear mongering that happened under Obama, we still have guns.
Well, let's not take it as fear mongering. Let's just take it as what it is right now, and that is Donald Trump has put out his plan. This is my plan for the next 4 years if I get reelected. Joe Biden put out his plan for the next 4 years. So we have to, he's not in office yet. He may or may not be, but we have to assume that this is what he plans on doing, especially when he stands up in the middle of a debate and tells the energy sector, of which I live in, I live in Texas, so the oil fields are a huge part of our economy down here. He tells us, hey, listen, within my next 2 terms, we're going to be switching you out. You're going to be in green energy. We're getting rid of oil and gas.
Oddly enough, I believe Texas has a moratorium on hydraulic fracking.
I don't know if that's true or not.
I do, because that's where, again, my degree is in renewable energy engineering, and that was one of the things that came with a lot of climate science and things. And hydraulic fracking is, because the chemicals are proprietary blend and we don't actually know what's in them, it can be very dangerous to seep into a water table. There's a bunch of people who do a bunch of other information on that. It's not important, but there's a moratorium.
But is there a moratorium on new or current?
I believe it's on new. Now, again, as the devil's in the details. Obviously,
that might be where we're confused here.
They use the clauses like a scalpel, and that's fine. I'm willing to admit that I am not omniscient. I
Mm,
do know that there is a moratorium on hydraulic fracking at some level in
mm.
Texas. And the joke was from Rick Perry, who loves energy more than Texas?
Of
And I was like, for Rick Perry, that was a really good line. Rick Perry could barely send 3 sentences together, so that was a good line for him. As for the policy of we have our Trump policy and we have
mm.
our Biden policy. I will tell you this: the Democrats do not fight for anything other than what makes them money. They just don't. I was gonna say because here's the thing: Obama in his first term ran very progressive, right?
Mm.
He get there, ran very progressive. Hey, public option. I'm going to put on a soft shoe and march with the teachers. There's better ways to educate than fill out a few bubbles. And then he had a super majority. And what did we get for healthcare? We got Mitt Romney's model, the Heritage Foundation model. So you're
Yeah.
telling me with you had a super majority, filibuster proof majority, and the filibuster was still there at the time. And you were like, let's already go past the middle and center right. So if you're thinking the Democrats are going to fight on something, listen, I mean, they might be able to beat your daughter. Right? I'm just gonna be honest with you. Like, I love the left. I'm a big fan of it. A lot of the stuff, and that's why I try to talk about material conditions and radicalize people more. But the corporate Democrats, oh God, listen, unless it's came with a check from Wall Street.
Well, I mean, let's be real, though. We've seen it over the last two presidencies. If Biden says he wants to do something, and it's really a point where he can say, I did this when it comes to 2024, he's going to pass it through an executive order and just let it be.
Yeah, but an executive order is gonna be watered down. It's gonna be court challenged. It's not gonna be the mandate that he wants because the whole point of politics is policy. So
Hmm.
that's why Trump wanted to get checks out with his name on it to help with the stimulus because when you materially help people's lives, people vote for you.
Obviously.
Yeah. Please tell the Democrats that. I would like you to tell the DNC that. DNC, if you're listening, when you do material things to help people, they vote for you. R.E. Senator Schumer. Anyways,
Well, this is what we're seeing, though. We're seeing them try and push towards these policies for votes. Whether they materialize or not is kind of irrelevant until this election, whenever it finally decides to end. I'm of the opinion right now that Alex Jones is right. We're going to see 79 days of hell before we have anything close to a resolution here. But once this all ends, if they win, all people have to look forward to is what they've promised throughout the election. And if they try, or if they succeed in any form, we're still looking at a push so far left that like moderates, are going to look right wing.
so you're familiar with something called the Overton window, right?
Yes.
Okay. So the Overton window in this country is extremely right. I mean, extremely right. It's not as right as Brazil, so good on us. Brazil's much more right. I mean, they do have a former military dictator as their president now, so there's probably some overlap there.
I mean, is it though?
Yeah.
Is it very right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How?
Okay, so I'll give you an example. There was polling done in Brazil to bring back the military dictatorship. How many people were in support of it? Glenn Greenwald reported on this. It was an 85% people to bring back a military dictatorship because they thought it would help with the violence. And even though it was an oppressive state, there was less violence in the favelas. Now, the reason favelas exist is because of exploitation under economic systems. Because nobody chooses to live in squalor if they can help it. They only, like, for example, you don't want to live in Texas for various reasons you shared with me, and it's private. It's not important. That's why you're looking at another place, at another location, which, again, private. It's not important.
No, I've told everybody, like,
Okay,
I don't want to live in a city of 1.5 million with all the
like
crap that's coming.
Well, I'd like to respect that because, again, privacy is important for people. So that's one of those things. Also, they recently had a court case where they set the precedent that a woman, because she was an Instagram model, was asking for it when she got raped. Now,
in Brazil?
In Brazil, yeah.
Okay, well, okay, that's Brazil though. How is it completely skewed right here though?
No. Oh, okay. Because you wanted to ask Brazil, I said Brazil very right wing. So here I say we're less right than Brazil.
But you're saying it's still very far right, and I don't believe that.
Yeah, it's absolutely very far right. We've had my entire life. We've had supply side economics, and supply side economics, along with the Laffer curve, which was never mathematically proven, it was just drawn on a napkin, is an incredibly right wing philosophy of economics.
Okay,
We
maybe of economics, we're having something of capitalism itself is somewhat right wing, but it's
yeah,
not right wing in the same way that a military dictatorship is.
sure.
On the other hand, we're socially shifting the window further left daily, literally
Uh,
daily.
so I'm going to take a contention with that, and it's while if you look at it like a snap look at, you can see that yes, over the last couple of decades, there's been a lot of social progress. In our lifetimes, gay marriage has been legalized. There have been trans bathroom bills that are stopped finally not being pushed, and that's great. People are finally letting people get on with stuff, and we have a super precedent that's going there. But here's the thing is that that's only backed up by corporate power. The second that it is more profitable to go the other way, it will snap. And because again, corporations generally are about money and not social activism. They do, like, if we remember when the Black Lives Matter thing happened, there was white text on a black background from everybody,
Mm-hmm.
from Chili's. Chili's had a statement.
Yeah.
And so it's while I understand and I appreciate the performative allyship I do from them, I would prefer something a little more, let's say, substantive.
You mean
Policy.
you mean okay, so substantive. Let's talk about substantive. You mean like calling the people who are rioting and burning buildings down and smashing stuff, calling them peaceful protesters or mostly peaceful protesters, or writing articles that say it's a fiery but peaceful protest when literally entire car lots are burning in the background behind them? Because that's
Now,
totally a thing.
I'm curious as to which outlet wrote that and which thing.
I'm pretty
I,
sure that's CNN. I'm pretty sure
okay.
that was
I'll
CNN.
hold CNN to the highest journalistic standard. I hold them to really nothing, because I don't necessarily like them for much. If I ever need to know what blimp fell today 100 years ago, CNN is where I'm gonna go because they're gonna have a lower third
Right, but
fraud.
it's not just CNN. This is most mainstream
Well,
media outlets
so
and
so perhaps
Antifa right now. Antifa, if you look on the news or pull up Andy No's page, he covers all of this stuff.
oh, Andy, no, yeah, okay, he's not a credible source, man.
You can
He's
say we can say he's credible or not credible if you want, but there's videos that he shows, and you can't deny the credibility of videos he's showing you,
I
and
can't.
of Antifa walking down the street chanting, "No, fuck Biden, fuck Trump, no elections, revolutions."
Okay, yeah, no, that's fine. I mean, if we're talking about, so we were talking about the election, now we're on Antifa. That's fine.
But
If we
this
want to,
is
we want to talk more left. Like, if we want to talk about more leftist politics,
well,
we can.
we're talking about shifting the Overton window, which way it's actually shifting, and
And
socially, which
tell me,
bleeds from politics. Socially,
so
it's going left, hard
so
left, so hard left that it's swinging back around alt right.
so that's the horseshoe theory, and there's some debunking there that can happen. I truly doubt that Richard Spencer and his ilk would be like, remember what you took from us, and then
Richard
there's
Spencer voted for Biden, bro. What are we talking about here?
yeah, that's optics. That's fine. I don't mind. But what I'm saying is, whatever he voted for, that man is a Nazi, and I expect him to advance Nazi causes because
Okay,
that's
but if the left is agreeing, if the policy positions of BLM and Antifa are lining up with Richard Spencer and the KKK, don't you
they're not.
think that there's some sort of position?
They're
They
not.
are though. They
Okay,
are.
demonstrate that to me because they're not.
California is voting right now and has voted most likely to cancel their civil rights clause. Their proposition, I think it is 249 that covers their civil rights. They're voting or have voted to cancel that.
Okay, that's in, I think it's California Prop 249. Is that what
I
it is?
believe so, yes.
Okay,
And
because
what it is it's the proposition that covers their civil rights and prevents discrimination based on race, ethnicity, et cetera, et cetera. And they're voting to recall that.
okay. So I'm looking up. So let's go with California. Let's see. I know what Prop 22 was. Prop 22 was for the independent contractors.
I
Let's go
believe
with
it's
Prop
249. We can look it up.
It's 16. It's end diversity ban.
There you go.
So that's what that is. Is here we go. It's repeals a constitutional provision that made it unlawful for California state and local governments to discriminate against or grant preferential treatment to people based on race, ethnicity, national origin, or sex. And currently, with 72% reporting, it is a no. So they are not. They are voting against that. So they are keeping the diversity ban, as it were.
So far, so far. But the fact that it's even up for challenge tells you that they're meeting. They're meeting. The left and the right are meeting somewhere. And where it
So
is ends up in
there's
less diversity.
there's a lot of context in there that I'm not privy to, and you're not privy to. Now, I'd like to know exactly what that context is. You may be right. You may, in this instance, be right about that. But here's the thing: no matter what an individual actor does, an individual actor does not does not equal a whole movement. So I have a hard time believing that some of the BLM people who started with Campaign Zero and other things are friends of the alt-right, specifically because a lot of them, as they say, are avowed Marxists. And Marxism,
I wouldn't say friends. I'm definitely not saying friends, but if your positions and your policies are meeting in the same place, you're swinging too far.
like I said, I'd have to see some more context on that. I'm willing to read the context.
Okay, well let's just start with one place where there's plenty of public context, okay?
Okay.
The Seattle Chop/Chaz.
Okay. Is that still going on? I thought that was
That's definitely over. That's definitely
Okay.
over. But
Yeah,
in the Seattle Chop/Chaz was run by BLM, okay? It was supposed to be a police-free zone, but they set up their own police, which ended up in essentially mafia rule. That's number one. Number two, they created black-only zones. They immediately reinstalled segregation and created black-only zones that was to be guarded by white people so that no white people got into these zones.
So you're telling me now again? I didn't look at a lot of Chop Chaz. I'm surprised it lasted that long because I know America, and America likes to nuke. Well, not nuke. That's the wrong word. They like to bomb things.
Well, this comes back down to the like cowardly politician thing. It was all fine until they decided to leave the Chaz and go protest outside the mayor's house. And then she was like, "Ugh, shut that shit down. Stop it."
And then it got shut down.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're telling me that based on, so again, I'm saying, I didn't look too much into the Chaz stuff. I saw some photos. There were some community gardens. There were some fires. There were people storming.
There's that stuff, but critical race theory in total brings these things up. Critical race theory is a wholly far left thing, and as it brings these things up and it creates this in the name of diversity, it creates these various amounts of segregation. It tries to get you to admit that you're racist even if you're not. It's not enough to just be not racist. You have to be actively anti-racist. All of these things come up, and what they do is they create division. They create segregation. They lead to these right-wing positions where you're literally doing the same thing as the KKK. You're judging people based on their color, on what they might think, on stereotypes. It's just swinging back around, buddy. So if the Overton window is shifting far left, and it's more acceptable to be on that side of it, but that pushes everybody, including myself, who for the longest time you described me as the peak moderate.
Yeah,
I'm right wing. I'm fucking right wing now.
I would say that as for the Overton window, economically we are incredibly right. Socially, we are touching left, but it can shift right like that as soon as it's profitable to do so. Again, Target, as soon as one Target was burned, they stopped all that inclusive language. Now, is that right, wrong? Doesn't matter. It's Target's prerogative to do so. Sorry, I got Temp Crown fell out. Temp Crown. In case you can't see it, there it is. So I get that thing put in. I get the real one put in tomorrow.
Nice.
So, yeah. So I don't have to wait too long. But if you see me fiddling with that, anyways.
You're fine.
So what I'm gonna say with the Overton window as a kind of a closing remark is that I would like to think of it more like a political compass and less like a left-right exactly, because there are different factors that inform politics. We have economic and social, and then if we want to be even more nebulous, we can say there's a overall philosophy that guides certain things. For example, I would say that the right libertarian philosophy in general is maximize individual freedom. Whereas the left libertarian philosophy would be maximize human quality of life. And that's, and we can quibble with those terms, but there are, and I'm just using those as examples for overall philosophy if we want to add a z-axis to this already complicated question. As for the horseshoe theory, there are a couple of people who rebut that have spent time doing that. Vosh would be one of those people. I don't know if you're familiar with Vosh.
Yeah.
Okay, I know. I'm sure you're not the biggest fan of his content, nor is Man Bun.
I mean, I don't care. I listen to everybody. I'll listen to him. I'll listen.
Yeah, like I
But
said,
I
he
just
does a bit on critical race. He does a bit on critical race theory that explains it better than me. I was not taught critical race theory in engineering school, so that's one of those things.
The issue I take with Vosh is the same issue I take with most leftists in total when we start getting into politics and how politics is downstream and bleeds into the social climate, and they bleed back and forth. Most are not aware of they're just woefully uninformed of anything outside of their position. That's the problem. I can sit here and talk to you about critical race theory, but I can also sit here and talk to you about how President Trump is the least presidential president we've had. And I get crap for this all the time. And
Really,
that
'cause
seems to be the problem.
I will say there is definitely a segment on, and I hate to use both sides rhetoric, but it's applicable here, of people who are, for lack of a better word, reactionary. You say position I disagree with, ergo you are wrong. Doesn't matter if 2 seconds before then I thought you made a great point. You have tripped the circuit, as it were, and now are wrong. There are
Well,
people
it's not just that. It seems to be so. I believe there's a study out there, and I can't quote it
That's fine.
because
I can look it up. Just if you've maybe got an abstract or something, I can. I've got my thing up. But
but I
talking
believe
on,
I believe this study says, and don't quote again. Don't quote me on this because I
I
can't quote the article. But I believe this study says that on the right, Republicans in general are more apt to watch right and left wing sources, and the left is more apt to only watch left wing sources. Because of
now,
that, you end up with an echo chamber on the left, and then you end up with this weird, kind of moderate position from the right.
have you ever been in leftist spaces by any chance?
I am on Twitter. I am
Okay,
constantly in a leftist space.
okay, because I'll let you know if you haven't. There's that meme of people circling around with lobsters throwing money, where it's like leftist, 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 and in the middle there are two leftists, two lobsters labeled leftist, and they're fighting each other. I promise it is not a echo chamber in the traditional sense, because again, I'm gonna pick up something here real quick. I have here a copy of Das Kapital Volume 1. Some people will be so granular as when I open my book and I see, oh, it looks on page 126. You used a sentence wrong. I disagree with that interpretation. And then here is a dissertation on my interpretation. And that's more common than people would think. So it's not a unit. It's not an echo chamber. It's a series of disparate voices that are essentially consuming each other. And I wish that the left, by and large, would more unify and fight for concrete policy goals the way a lot of the right wing does. Like, for example, Ted Cruz did not like Donald Trump. Lindsey Graham went on The Daily Show, shooting pool, making fun of Donald Trump.
Oh, yeah.
They both bent the knee. And if I'm uppity to the wrong Marxist Leninist, they're gonna be like, "Well, Nim, you're not a comrade," and I'll be like, "Of course I'm a comrade. I've got a Twitch shirt and a World of Warcraft shirt. I am absolutely a comrade. What are you talking about?" I will include self-appreciating humor in there. Please don't let it take away from the actual validity of the point. But I don't want to go. The problem with a lot of the left is, and I say this as a person on the left, not in the Rubin sense, but in actual lefty, is that if I start talking to you about Hegelian dialectics, you're going to be like, all right, those are words. And
Yeah.
the right can make a much more emotionally impactful argument. And they also, in most cases, not all, but in most cases I've seen recently, can tie it to material conditions. Again, that's why earlier I mentioned why Donald Trump wanted to send out another stimulus check with his name on it. Because that way he can say, like, I put that there, and I put that money in your pocket when you needed it. And again, material conditions lead to votes. So that's
Yeah.
yeah.
But
I mean, that's
but how exactly is any of this supposed to come back around? Because when I talk to the left, I'm a Nazi. And
I gotta ask: do you do Nazi things? Do you advocate for an ethno state? Do you advocate for the eradication of things? Do you the eradication of races? Do you advocate for, let's say, complete state and corporate power having a handshake? Do
no,
you?
but I'm a straight white male that kind of likes Donald Trump. So
Okay, well, I'm gonna tell you, as excuse me, I'm gonna give you a pass. I don't think you're a Nazi based on what we've talked about. Now again, maybe you're a great actor. I don't think so.
could be
I don't think you're not. I mean, like you're not like Baked Alaska.
the
Baked Alaska.
the blue and black back here could actually be like red and black, and the tiles could
Sure,
be
sure.
forming the
I,
swastika. You just can't see it
I
because the camera's too close.
maybe I don't know. That's fine. Sure, as long as we're going into flights of fancy, it's fine. But the thing is that ultimately, as a member of the left, part of my thing is I can't be screeching at you, because if I'm screeching at you, then we're not. If you punch me in the face, I'm not going to listen to what you have to say. I'm mad at you. So I come at you with accusations. I mean, unless I'm locked on target, and I mean like we got confirmation, folks. Take that shot. That's a different story.
All
But
right, so this is where this ties back around, right? This is where this ties back around to the election. We have Antifa. We've kind of come to an agreement that the Overton window, socially at least, has moved left.
yeah, sure.
We can't agree on where it is on the left, but it's moved left.
100%. It has moved left, if only for the fact that, hey, in our lifetime, there was a group that couldn't get married. Now that group can get married. That is social progress moving.
And we've established that we have Antifa and BLM regularly covered by the media going out and committing acts of political violence.
There are there are people. So Antifa, right? And there's a thing I linked to you a little while ago on the philosophy of Antifa. It was done by a gentleman by the name of Ollie Thorne, great YouTuber, and has little politically active and all that. There are arms of Antifa that are not violent, just as there are arms of BLM that are not violent. And if the majority of those organizations were violent, they would have been stopped already.
Okay,
But
but let's pause here. Let's pause
okay,
here. If I put on a United States Army outfit
okay,
and I go out and say I'm a member of the United States Army and I start committing acts of violence, the
yeah,
United States Army is going to get blamed. Period.
yeah,
They're
yes,
responsible.
there will be some blame that gets cast there. I'm not saying they're blameless. I
Correct.
want to make sure that's clear.
So
Because that would make me a hack.
So while I understand that there's right wing guys, there's members of the Proud Boys who
Among other things.
are completely peaceful. There are some that are completely violent. Of course, we understand this, but the group in total gets the shellacking here.
Antifa is not covered in Antifa is not covered in positive light outside of some very few, and I do mean very few, select corners of the internet that aren't big.
Well,
So
let's be real. Antifa, when they're covered at all, they're covered by off-brand journalists like Andy No, or they're just wrapped into in the mainstream media. They're just wrapped into BLM.
yeah, I would say that's generally it's mentioned as BLM and Antifa. They tend to wrap them together. And now is that a matter of convenience? Is that a matter of narrative? Is that a matter of propaganda? We can argue that point if you want to, but I can take that as read.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
So we have Joe Biden coming in, who is essentially doing what the leaning left Democratic Party is wanting. He's essentially saying, "Hey, I'm willing to go these places. I'm willing to go this route. I'm willing to take these far left positions." Does that embolden these people?
No, because if you've spoken to any member of Antifa, you will know that they're not voting for Joe Biden.
They don't speak to
they're-
me.
No, well, I will let you know as a mediator, and you can take it either on faith or not. It's fine. They are not voting for Joe Biden. They're the same people on Twitter who will shame me for being like, listen, I voted for Joe Biden because I have friends that are in a less privileged position for me. I'm doing this to choose my opponent, not because I support Joe Biden. And, well, how come you don't want to tear down the system, Nim? I never said that. I just know that right now, the tools that I have available to me in the arena that I find myself in is the ballot.
I
After
just
the ballot.
I can't wrap my brain around driving through downtown Austin to get to Missouri and seeing the hammer and sickle on an overpass with the no elections, yes revolutions beside it. That
Look,
in Texas,
yeah,
that just
I'll be
ooh.
honest with you. Texas, that's a lot for Texas. Maybe Vermont. Okay, listen, Vermont's a little more liberal place. It is what it is. We live in this country.
California,
Yeah,
yeah, sure.
not Orange County. Orange County's very red. Not in the communist way. Orange County is where a lot of people who like tax breaks live. So that's whatever, fine. It's not a big we make jokes about our country. We live here. It's George Carlin said it's a great country, strange culture. So that's the late great George Carlin. But I'll say this, that while revolution from the leftist sense, hey, we're going to overthrow capitalism, whoosh, and we're going to instate socialism, and it's going to be whatever, that's not going to happen because you didn't vote, right? That's the thing for the left that I want them to understand is if you didn't vote, that doesn't cause that to happen. That just causes you not voting means that somebody else, their vote proportionally counts for more because of, and I'm going to quote Andrew Yang here, math.
Okay, but you're saying no, it won't embolden them. And I'm saying that Joe Biden, who refuses to even name Antifa as a real thing, he said, the violence is bad, but he won't name Antifa, and he won't. I don't think he's going to do anything.
Yeah, here's the thing.
Why wouldn't that embolden them?
Well, because they don't trust him to do anything, because they see what the corporate wing of the Democratic Party has always done. They'll reach out to the left a little bit, and then as soon as they think the left is either gotten or not able to be gotten, then they run right. If, for example, we can see in the last presidential election here, instead of choosing, let's say, a Senator Sanders or an Elizabeth Warren, Hillary Clinton chose a very moderate Republican-style Democrat, blue dog, in Tim Kaine. That's one of those things. Basically, we don't have an FDR style Democratic Party where the leader can go in and twist arms. Trump, for all of his faults, and he has many, can twist arms. So I've seen him bully other members of his party to the point where even Chris Christie, who was like, I'm gonna do something, was like, okay, I'll get on the plane now. I'll go home.
Him telling poor Chris Christie, yeah, we're gonna stop eating candy bars, ain't we, Chris? I love this guy. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just saying, again, arm twisting like that. I wish Joe Biden's not that. Also, Antifa is, again, if you don't trust somebody to do something, if you told me you were going to give me $10 every day for, let's say a couple of years, and then I never get that money, at the very minimum, I'm going to be like, yeah, sure, whatever, fine, whatever. Yeah, sure, you're going to give it to me. At the very worst, I'm not going to talk to you. And Antifa doesn't deal with corporate Democrats. They are, by definition, kind of exclusionary because they are Antifa, the anti-fascist organization, is very far left. And, we support our local troops, of course, but they're not.
I don't support them. If I see them out of my house, they're going to get shot. I just want you guys to know that.
You don't have to support them. You don't have to support them. Let it make very clear that Rabbit does not support the Antifa movement. That's okay. I just want to make sure because again, while I say things for comedic effect, I know that I don't want to undercut ultimately your point and things like
that. No. You're good. You're good, man.
Okay.
I just want to be clear. You're like, oh, we support our local troops. No.
Don't roll. So basically, don't roll up on Rat.
You'd be coming to the wrong party if you come to my place. I'm just telling you, man.
That's fine. That's fine. Listen, and you know what? Ultimately, I would love to see I want to see less violence. I do. Black Lives Matter, 100%. Antifa, the non-violent aspects of it, I'm great for. I want to see fascism fought in the world. I don't want to see, and there's a reason why we don't let the guilty met out the punishment. Because let's hypothetically say that, God forbid, somebody hurts a family member of mine in a permanent way, right? I may want or kills them, God forbid. I may want vengeance. In fact, I'm going to let you know, just in case, I want vengeance. Just it's not a may. You hurt somebody important to me. I don't have a whole lot of people who are important to me. You hurt somebody important to me. I want vengeance. I want to put a plastic bag around your neck and watch you bleed. And
Right.
just some,
Right.
like it's fine. Now I'm not going to go any more graphic because YouTube. Feel free to cut that one out. But but the reason we don't let me decide what happens is because then we don't have law, or at least we have retributive justice. We have codified justice, which is that person gets arrested, has due process, has a trial, serves a prison sentence, or whatever.
Well,
So
that's kind of what's brought us to where we are in the country right now is some sort of equity under the law, but the problem is we have equity under the law. We're seeing statistically that there actually is even equality of outcome despite the horrible things that have happened. It still seems like an equitable outcome even when it's wrong.
I would I'm taking contention with that because we do know from crime statistics that African American people tend to be sentenced to 20% longer crimes for the same crimes, not to include the drug war. And if we include the drug war, there is a white people are locked up 4 times less than black people in America for marijuana. Now, I assume that you, being a person who's like, freedom,
Hmm.
is more like, listen, treat it like alcohol. Don't drive while you're on it. Don't give it to kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't care.
Wow. Okay, you Nazi. You not. How dare you have?
But that's not really what we're seeing a lot of the contention about. We're seeing the contention about police action directly against black men, specifically, but black people in total, a la George Floyd. And then we come back and we have
Sterling. How about Alton Sterling? Guy had permission to sell CDs outside of a Louisiana corner store. He was killed. They arrested the owner, took the footage, and let him go. Let the owner go 6 hours later. And Alton Sterling was there, or Philando Castile, who was like, hey, I've got a gun. I'm trying to do something. He reached for his license, saw a gun, and officer jumped the gun, and bop bop bop. And we saw that on Facebook, where, he was dying. So
okay, but let's flip this to the other side, though. Yes, okay, so there's questionable actions. That I'm not even gonna deny that.
yeah.
There is. But we have the other side of this too that we've seen this year, along with all of the other highlighted stuff. We have Javon Hatchett specifically, and I like to bring this one up. This is a young black man that decided after watching cops shoot people in Facebook videos that he needed to kill a white man.
Okay.
So he walked into an AutoZone, asked the employee for something, took out a knife, and stabbed the man to death, and then walked out. Then he got put in jail. His cellmate happened to be white, so he killed him too.
That's terrible. That's terrible. Now the question I want to ask is: do people who have the authority of the state should they be held to a higher standard than the standard civilian?
Of course.
Okay, so I just want to mention that there. So when the police shoot people, and I understand there are justified shootings. I will say it because there can be justified shootings. That's what we have grand jury inquiries for. That's what we have trials and investigations. So not all cop shootings are unjustified. But I just wanted to make sure that we set that standard that we can agree on, which is that if you have the authority of the state, you are held to a higher standard. And okay, so the Javon guy. I thought you were going to talk about the one dude who shot the little boy. Like, that was terrible.
I'm not gonna. That is terrible. We're not going to talk about that.
Yeah, no,
I don't want to talk about that one because that's.
We can let that guy rot in the history in the ash bin of history.
It also doesn't as poignantly highlight where I'm going with this, and that is to say, these cops we're wanting these cops charged with hate crimes, and we're wanting them charged as if they was in the same situation as Javon Hatchett. The problem is that even if they are, it's not enough, A, and B, we have situations like Javon Hatchett where he's being charged with some low-level degree of murder, but he doesn't get charged with a hate crime, despite obviously meeting the criteria for a hate crime.
Now, that sounds like prosecutorial discretion, which is a whole nother thing that happens. Ultimately, it's up to what charges are brought is up to the prosecutor. I also do want to mention, as it comes to police, and I want to talk about the problem of qualified immunity. The fact that if I was doing this, you can spin a narrative, and I was doing this in service of the community. This never happened, and then you can kind of get off scot free. And then we have another situation where if you shoot somebody while eating Popeye's chicken, and they don't have a gun, that's bad.
Well, I
Now,
mean,
I know it's not that absurd. I know it's not that absurd, but I wanted to. That's how qualified immunity. If it hasn't happened before, you're immune. If it has happened before, if the same situation has happened, then it falls under precedent. And I think we should end qualified immunity. And I think there was a gentleman by Michael Knowles, was a cop in Baltimore. He did a lot of drugs, not he didn't do a lot of drugs himself. Did a lot of drug task force stuff, and he was talking about community policing initiatives. Actually, very interesting talk.
community policing doesn't work, and we can go into why in a second. But qualified immunity is a more complicated topic because when you get on qualified immunity, I have personal experience with this because of my background as an EMT and a medical professional. You have not only qualified immunity, you have a duty to act. Qualified immunity, I think, is complex, and I think it's too easily of a baitable topic. Like
So
you can say, well, these cops have qualified immunity because they can't be sued. And that's really what qualified immunity comes down to, is you can't be sued as a civilian for what you do as a cop.
there's something known as a moral hazard, meaning if I, and we saw this in 2008 with the Wall Street crash, if I gamble with your money, I'm much more likely to play riskier, to take more chances, to play fast and loose with the rules than I am with my money. And not being able to be sued allows people to play a little more fast and loose and a little less by the book. Now, if there's a problem with the book, we need to amend the book. If there's a problem with how things are, we need to go through the legal process and change that. But not being able to hold people accountable, either through police union contracts or an unwillingness because the DA and police work hand in hand, we need to fix that.
Okay, but what are you going to do besides bankrupt a cop? If, for instance, there's a justified shooting without qualified immunity, you can still go sue that without said qualified immunity. You can still go sue that cop in civil court and take everything they own.
Can you? I would think that the precedent of it being ruled a justified shooting would preclude being sued. It is only the unjustified shooting that would be the problem.
But if that's the problem, then we can just add a clause and keep qualified immunity.
Well, the question is how do we define unjustified shootings? And that comes back to police union contracts and DAs unwilling to charge. So for now, what my thing is this, is if I want to go for an all avenues approach, meaning however I get to the solution of less people being shot by cops, yes.
Okay, well then that completely flies in the face of a large portion of the BLM credence, because what you need to make less people get shot is you need better qualified cops, which takes more money.
Are you familiar with Campaign Zero?
No.
Okay, Campaign Zero originally started with, I believe it was the Trayvon Martin killing, and that was the proto BLM. It's a series of about 8 different policies that are in order to bring down violence by police. I'm a big fan of, and one of them, which you'll probably be a fan of, is body cameras, because a camera is objective unless you can edit the footage. So you make it where you can't edit the footage. I mean, which I think you'd probably be in favor of.
I mean, that's usually how that stuff works, right?
Yeah. Well, no, but listen, I'm not saying that it is. I'm just saying that, listen, there's a whole bunch of different ways for you to manipulate a situation, but with an objective camera on the chest, you know, that you can't access or turn off under penalty of law, you can at least be, hey, you can at least be, this is fine. In fact, there have been some police officers, some police departments, I thought it was San Antonio, that had body cams at one point, for a test period, and then they were taken away. I might be wrong on San Antonio.
I don't know.
Okay, because I'd seen a couple of years ago about that, and they wanted them back because of the cameras. The complaints against the officers had a much lower success rate because the camera showed, no, I didn't do X, I did Y. And you know, and I'm all for not. I don't want somebody to be charged whether criminal or police officer, unjustly. That goes against the nature of law.
Okay, but then we're again number one. We're still talking about more funding. Number one, number two. Uh, More importantly, we're talking about not charging officers when there's clear case for them
Well,
to use their weapons. I.e., this latest one. I can't remember the guy's name. I can't remember the guy's name right offhand, but this latest shooting where the guy is literally running at the cops who are retreating with their weapons out, admittedly, but they're retreating, ended up shooting the guy because he's charging them with a knife.
well, listen, that's a clear. I would say that's justified shooting all day. If and again, I've not heard of this. I've been spending most of the day not listening to music as opposed to politics. But what I'm saying is that if those are the situation of that this man is charging police officers with a knife, and the cops have already decided, listen, we're withdrawing, and you're still coming at, okay, look, sorry, that there's a phrase that some people I know like, play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
I love that phrase. I use it all the time.
Okay, yeah, I think it's why. Yeah, I think I heard it from you originally. But that to me is an example of that, because there's no when it comes to the law, we apply something known as the reasonable person standard.
Mm.
So, for example, if I were in a courtroom and I were being charged with X crime, the jury of my peers would be chosen on a reasonable person. They would ask, would a reasonable 33-year-old think that take this action? And then from there, we can see, if there's a culpability or other, other mitigating factors. But they have to see first, is this a reasonable person? And that goes there. And any reasonable person would know that you do not charge against firearms. And
Okay,
especially,
but that's not the position the left argues. And I got to be real with you. Where the more I talk to you, the more it's reinforcing this idea that I put out earlier, that the more information you give people, especially people on the left, the more they actually agree with the right.
I mean, it's not. It's not I don't. I've yet to. So here's the thing. I've yet to hear something that's convinced me. I hear things that are whatever. But I hear things on the margins that are whatever. But I've yet to hear anything that convinces me that I should look at the right wing stuff, because it just hasn't happened yet. Now maybe it will. Who knows? But I think that as for police, we got to end qualified immunity, or we got to do something with police unions, because
I mean, do you really want to do something with police unions? What would you want to do with them?
I would want them to be subject to civilian oversight. Those contracts you need to not be able to scrap page 13s, right?
Okay, but if you're going to be against police unions, then you have to apply that same standard to all unions.
No, I don't, because not all unions have the ability to take life and have the power of the state.
Ooh, but all unions do the same thing, and they take the same actions. Their entire job is to protect their union members, their workers. So if you're going to apply the standard to police unions,
cops aren't workers. Cops are tools of the state. They are not workers.
do they get a salary? Do they do a
Of
job?
course. Yeah, so they get paid for their labor. They are not workers.
Is
They are
the
tools.
only thing they're doing, hold on, is the only thing they're doing carrying a gun around and enforcing the law?
Are they constantly enforcing the law while they're being paid for
Are
it?
they
Yeah,
doing more things than carrying their gun around and enforcing the law?
possibly. I'm sure they go to the bathroom at some point.
Okay, do the cops they provide other services besides law
And that's
enforcement?
where defund the police movement comes from, is that we need to, instead of, we're not talking about like no police funding. It's like, let's take the mental health funding that was allocated to the police during the drug war in the 90s and move it back to mental health. So instead of having an officer have to deal with somebody who might be a schizophrenic, we have a social worker.
Okay.
Because
Well,
so that-
let's go back a little bit. Let's go back to the social worker idea. A unarmed social worker that just got charged by a large black man with a knife. Do you think that social worker is going to survive?
maybe, I don't know. But
Probably not. No. Let's not say maybe. Let's live in reality. She got charged by a guy with a knife. He's trying to kill these officers. She's getting stabbed.
All right, let's do the thing that I said, which was the schizophrenic. Some guy who's tripping out, who who is having a mental break, and is cops see him and they think he's acting erratically. He could be on drugs, he could be violent, and they shoot him. Does he have more chance of living through that episode with a social worker or a police officer? The answer is a social worker.
Correct.
So
But who has which person has a better chance of living between the social worker and said violent schizophrenic? When violent schizophrenic gets violent,
the social worker knows how to calm them down.
Are you really going to sit there and tell me that a violent person is going to be calmed down by a social worker?
Yes, I've seen it. It happens in mental institutions all the time.
Usually with the aid of drugs and other services. How many times have you been committed, Nim?
I've been in a mental institution twice.
Well, that's one more than me, but I've been in once. And
suicidal ideation.
Yes, for suicide attempt, yes. And the schizophrenics I seen was usually given medications to calm them down. They was not talked down, and if they got violent, they brought out the big nurses to strap them into stuff and hold them down and then give them the shot and then put them in their room.
So here's a question. Do you think that the social workers are going to go to things by themselves because cops deploy in pairs for that specific reason? I would think that the social workers would deploy in pairs for that specific reason.
Okay, but I think unarmed social workers going towards situations that are inherently dangerous, unless you're going to set up a situation like they do with the EMTs, where the cops go in and clear the scene and make sure it's safe first, and then the medical personnel go in. But if you do that, then you're just doubling costs for no reason.
What if we have one cop and one social worker in certain cases? And I say that as, not as a standard operating procedure, because sometimes you need two police officers.
Then the crazy person charging the pair with a knife still ends up shot.
Possibly. But and obviously they're charging with a knife. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's they're gonna get caught. But the thing is, the social worker there has been like, okay, there was a problem. We see this. It's an objective standpoint, as opposed to under a police union, we're working together, thin blue line, we don't cross it. It's the idea is I'm trying to inject objectivity and expertise into fields, because officers are trained to uphold laws. Mental health professionals are trained to help with mental health professionals. You and I were not treated by cops. We were treated by doctors, therapists, nurses, and whiskey.
In a safe situation somewhere away from the scene of everything happening. So where I would get on board with the social idea would be more funding for cops to take God, what is that guy's name? Big guy was a former SEAL CSM, was on Rogan recently.
You talking about Jocko?
Jocko, yes. I get behind Jocko's position. The cops need more funding, and every cop, 1 day a week, should be training in some form of MMA, de-escalation, etc., specifically like jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, no, I'm down. I am so down with de-escalation training, because here's the thing: if you punch me in the face because I'm being rowdy, all right, you might lay me down. Okay, I lived through that.
But again, we're back to more funding. The police need more funding, not less.
Or maybe instead of giving them MRAPs, in Saginaw, Michigan.
Yes. Demilitarization, though, is not a defunding action. It's simply
it's the same. It's defunding in the same way that I said before, moving the funding from the police to mental health professionals.
I don't think you should move that funding, though. I think you should bar them from militarization, further militarization. Like there's a little jacked off town in the middle of Georgia that just bought a fucking MRAP. Why do you need a mine resistant vehicle in the middle of Georgia? You don't. You don't.
Yeah, I know. I'm familiar. There's nothing in Georgia that requires an MRAP, as far as I'm aware. There maybe in one place in Georgia, but
I mean, it's probably meth labs that could be considered IEDs, but you're probably, the likelihood of you running into one of those on the road is slim.
Yeah. They're usually a little more secluded, off in the distance. You can see them. Anyways.
But that requires, all of these things require more funding and more options, not less funding and removing that funding from the police. So for instance, if we get on board with more funding for the police and we say, "Hey, listen, you need to subdue this person if at all possible because you are now trained to take someone down and choke them half to death and then put them in a vehicle, you can now take them to some place where they can get proper help."
Okay, so what about and here's a thought.
So I think policy needs change, not funding.
So yeah, I'm down with policy. In fact, I don't know if you know this. I grew up in Cincinnati, right? The Timothy Thomas shooting in 2001 started riots where Molotovs and everything thrown. There used to be a policy in the police in Cincinnati. If you drew your gun, you had to fire it. That was the training: draw, fire, holster. That was what it was. Now, after the shooting of Timothy Thomas, because he ran down a dark alley, he reached to pull up his pants. The officer thought he had a gun, and shot him and killed him. They changed that policy to draw down but not to fire until they saw a visible threat, and shootings went down. Cincinnati's a pretty violent place, all overall. If you've ever been there, you'll know. Anyways, so I think that changing policy is good. Training policy is good. What if we shift some of the training, away from, let's say, firearm usage, because you do that, and we do a little bit more de-escalation. And again, once a week, because you can go to the range anytime, and I'm down to I want my police officers to be professionals. I want my police officers to be proficient in the use of their weapons and in the use of all their tactics. And it seems like de-escalation is always last on the barrel.
Okay.
Now,
I'm with you. I'm with you.
Okay.
But we have a candidate here that, at least as of the start of this conversation, is looking like he's going to win, who wants police to do nonsensical things, wants to defund them, and by nonsensical, I mean shooting people in the leg. Like, really? Really?
That is, yeah. Look. I've used a firearm. I'm fairly decent. It's been a little while. I'm a decent shot with a pistol. To tell me that I could call a shot under the heat of the moment, that's wishful thinking. That's something you see in the movies.
Dude, I'm pretty good. I'm a pretty good shot with several different weapons, and I don't think I could accurately shoot somebody in the leg.
Under the heat of conditions where you're like, oh god, I gotta do this.
Not a moving target, like not even under stress, just a moving target accurately hits you in the leg. I'm not sure I could do that 100% of the time. I'm not sure I could do that 50% of the time.
Yeah, so
consistency.
I will agree that statement is obviously that's not defensible, and it's unrealistic. And that's like I don't know. You pick another gaff. It's the same thing. You can't. I'm being honest. I can't defend that because.
But he's doing this in support of BLM, and I believe
How much do you believe it's support, and how much do you believe it's pandering?
I believe it's 50-50.
So you believe 50% of Joe Biden, guy who wrote the crime bill, the guy who was tough on drugs, the guy who's like, we need more prisons.
Mr. Racial Jungle is now like, I think we should do this to support BLM.
You think he went woke in his senile years?
I mean, he's also went dumb into a basement and several other things. Why not? Maybe this is part of his dementia, is multiple personalities, and one of them's really woke.
Okay. Yeah, charge your headphones. It's fine. It's fine. I got my headphones can come unplugged. I've run it through the Go XLR.
Yeah.
Okay, so like I said, I think that by and large, and let's wrap up the police, I think, because we both made our cases here. I think that the police, by and large, should not be responsible for mental health care. I don't think they should be responsible for nuisance call. Well, nuisance call is a different thing. I mean, it's cat in a tree, whatever. It's fire people usually get that. What I want from this is I want less deaths by police officer of all people. Now, how we achieve that, the devil, again, is in the details. I think, personally, we shouldn't task cops who have to be on edge all the time to also have to be able to parse out a situation of, is this guy a schizophrenic? Is he tweaking? Does he have a knife on him? And, all that. I think we should take some of that responsibility away from the police. We do that by taking the militarization funds that they use to acquire things that might be comically unneeded, such as the MRAP. Yeah. And we hire I don't know, let's say some mental health professionals or some social workers or something, whatever, let the city decide. Because a city, I don't know what's good for San Antonio so much. I mean, outside of an overall, like, hey, you need air, you need water, that let San Antonio City Council decide how to appropriate the funds. And if and let's say hypothetically San Antonio's like, listen, we don't like the mental health professional route. We're going full cops. Okay? Well, that was what San Antonio decided.
Okay, but we're back to, and we're parsing this back to the overall topic of the elections, and that is to say, Joe Biden believes on this far left thing. And if you want law and order, you want police reform, you do that more aptly, more proficiently through Donald Trump than you do Joe Biden.
So I'm on his website right now, and I'm looking for the just to see what his actual plan is, because this is his plan. This is what he sat down, thought out, and had happen. And I'm looking here to see what we have for the police. So I've got, let's see, there's, wow, I didn't think that was gonna be on there. It's crazy. Uh, Something about a diaspora. I was like, what? Why are you talking about a diaspora? And the opioid crisis, pretty good. I'm looking here for anything about police. Now, so we have an NR gun violence epidemic. Maybe that has something to do with police, but I'm looking for something specifically for police. We have the plan for Black America, um, improve racial economic equality. That's not really dealing with the police. I'm not. Let's see. Here we go. Support educators and students, veterans, immigrants, Made in America, tax policy, healthcare, COVID beating, but not. I'm not seeing anything about police. I mean, I can click on one of these, which I think would be probably the closest, would be the Biden plan for Black America or the End Our Gun Violence Epidemic. But I'm not. I'm on his website right now. It's joebiden.com/joes hyphen vision. There is a donation link, so just in case I want to donate, it's there. Got to make sure that one still works.
Hold on. We're going to bring this up. We're going to bring this up because I'm on joebiden.com/justice. Continue.
Okay,
the Biden plan for strengthening America's commitment to justice. Now, I've got it up on screen here so they can see it right in the middle of me and you.
I can't see it. I see you, but not you. Maybe if I exit full screen.
Could be, yeah. Because I've got mine in divided screen.
I only see you and me.
Okay.
Still. Tell you what. Why don't you
joebiden.com/justice.
All right, I'll go there right now. Because again, like I said, I don't want to have anything taken out. It's joebiden.com, already there. So let's go to justice. Yes. Don't fat finger it. There it is. Okay, the Biden plan for strengthening America's commitment to justice. There's a YouTube video from Joe's Vision. So here we go. Equality, equity, justice. These ideas are the American creed. We've never lived up to it. We haven't always gotten it right, but we never stopped trying. Especially true when it comes to our criminal justice system. Today, too many people are incarcerated in the United States. Well, Joe, why did you write the '94 crime bill? I mean, I'm just throwing that out there. Like, look, man, I voted for you because of tactical reasons, not because I necessarily support you. And that's that. To build a safe, let's see, too many of them are Black and brown. To build safe, healthy communities, we need to rethink who we're sending to jail, how we treat those in jail, and how we get them health care, education, jobs, and housing. They need to successfully rejoin society after they serve their time. As President, Joe Biden will strengthen America's commitment to justice and reform our criminal justice system. The Biden plan for strengthening America's commitment to justice is based on several core principles. We can and must reduce the number of people incarcerated in this country while also reducing crime. Well, no one should be incarcerated for drug use alone. Instead, they should be diverted to drug courts and treatment. All right, that's not bad. Reducing the number of incarcerated individuals will reduce federal spending on incarceration. These savings should also be reinvested in communities impacted by mass incarceration. Our criminal justice system
let's skip down here because I've been going through this with them. Let's start with one policy that for sure we have an example doesn't work. And if you skip down a few pages to end the criminalization of poverty, you will find in cash bail.
Yeah, absolutely. In cash bail. What's wrong with that?
Cash bail has been proven, ending cash bail has been proven in New York to just create a revolving door.
All right, let's I'm sure we got some statistics on that.
Sure. Look them up.
Ending cash bail in New York. Here we go. So let's take a look here. All right. Fair, dangerous. Let's. All right. So wait. Let's see. We've got NBC News, Politico, BriannaCenter.org, the Democrat and Chronicle, Fox,
Juvenile
NY1.
justice.
Which one?
No, no, keep going. Whichever one you want.
Oh, okay. Let's try. We'll try NBC. NBC seems to be all right. Let's see. Fair or dangerous. Days after ending cash bail, New York has second thoughts. Bail reform is well-meaning, but there are unintended consequences, a prosecutor said. On January 1st, landmark New York law curtailing the use of cash bail went into effect, signaling a leap in nationwide movement to reduce the number of people held in jails. But after less than a week under the new system, elected officials are already having second thoughts, rattled by stories of suspects being set free and committing new crimes, including that of a woman accused of an anti-Semitic attack in New York City. Wow, that's terrible. The backlash led by conservative lawmakers and law enforcement is sweeping up some Democrats who push for the law, including Governor Andrew Cuomo, who said Monday that it remains a work in progress. The shift shows the politicians are still wary of appearing soft on crime, even as the country has become more open to changing its criminal justice system. Where was I? Sorry, the mic's in the way, so it's hard to read.
No, you're good. You're good.
By electing reform-minded prosecutors, easing sentences laws, and eliminating policies that discriminate against the poor. As the latest state to struggle over revamping its bail laws, New York may now become a lesson for others considering similar changes. This, in some ways, the Willie Horton effect is playing out over and over again, including our contemporary progressive politics, said Kellen Funk, an associate professor at Columbia Law School, where he teaches a seminar on the American bail system. It's not gone, Funk said, of what he called attention-grabbing anecdotes that sway policy much more than statistics that tell us which policies work and which don't. I can keep going if you'd like.
Essentially, even though they're still arguing for it, the current statistics with bail being reduced in New York have shown that it just creates a revolving door.
Well, let me see if I can find some nice numbers here, because like while I don't mind a nice article. Let me see numbers of repeat crimes. Try repeat crimes.
Sure.
Now they may not have and again I'm typing into Google. We've got ending cash bail in New York, numbers of repeat crimes. So just to see what happens here. City and state, and why that's an opinion piece. Why abolish in New York Times? Pretty good piece. While abolishing bail on some crime. Okay, I don't want to read the article. I'm looking for I'm looking for some graph here.
Well, I'll tell you what we can do. We can do. We can just call that as anecdotally so far it's shown.
I am willing to say there is a non-zero percentage of offenders who would be freed on cash bail who would reoffend.
Anecdotally, we're seeing evidence that it's happening, that it's creating a revolving door. Anecdotally, at least.
That being said, there is also anecdotal evidence for a person who could not get out under cash bail being able to be released on cashless bail and not committing crimes. There is
we just might not be hearing those stories because they're not as sensational. I can totally agree to that.
All right, cool. No problem. So let me go back to Joe Biden's thing, because that was where we were.
We're going to go down. We're going to go down a little bit from that, a few pages. And where we're going to land is reducing violence and supporting survivors of violence. And this is where we start pushing hard left into Joe Biden's policies.
What's above that? I'm trying, because I'm at juvenile justice.
Above that, so go below juvenile justice to offering second chances. And it's below that.
Go. Thank you. That's what. And we are looking for
reducing violence and supporting survivors of violence.
There it is. I see it. Okay. So
counter the rise in hate crime. The number of hate crimes in the U.S. reached a 5-year high in 2016 and then went up to another 17% in 2017. Biden will tackle the rise in hate crimes through moral leadership that blah, 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 blah. Joe Biden's great. Yada, yada, yada. Okay. Is there a statistical rise in hate crime, or do we just have a highlight on it? Well,
take a look.
I'm
sure we can find it. I'm sure we can find that. So hate crime numbers 2016. So let's see. So that's 2016. Let's go 2016 through, let's say 2019 being the most accurate. Here we go. So justice.gov. Here we go. 1996 to 2018. It's not bad. Pretty decent thing here. Got the link from the publication. from Criminal Justice Services, Federal Bureau of Investigations, Uniform Crime Reporting. So let's see, crime in the United States, national based reporting system, law enforcement officers killed and assaulted, hate crime statistics. Okay, so we say 2016 said was a high, and then there was a 17%
Mm,
increase on 2017. So let's take a look
right.
at 2016 real quick. All right, caution against ranking. Why the FBI discourages ranking agencies on sole basis of UCR data, human trafficking. I'm looking for hate crime. Here we go. Hate crime by jurisdiction, access table. Man, I gotta freaking go through about 9 different. There are okay, so there's a bunch of tables here. We've got, let's see, Table 12 presents the following data for each state: the total number of participating agencies, the population represented, the number of agencies that submitted data about hate crime incidents, and the number of incidents reported.
Mm,
Uh, 13 is the data from those agencies that reported one or more hate crime incidents in their respective jurisdictions during one or more quarters in 2016. 14 lists the agencies that indicated no instances of hate crime occurring in their respective jurisdictions during the quarters of 2016 for which they submitted reports. 13 and 14 data by state. Okay,
mm.
and the methodology section of this publication further explains procedures. So I guess which one should we look at?
So for me, I'm on justice.gov/hate crime/hate crime statistics with
Okay,
the
I'm
line in
going.
between.
I'm actually at the Department of Justice, the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
Okay.
So I went there. What I can do is I can pop
No,
you.
no. Go ahead.
Pop.
You're good. You're good. So what this is showing in 2018, there was 8,646 victims in single bias incidents. And the biases are broken down into what they are: gender being the smallest, race, ethnicity, ancestry bias being the largest. The
Okay.
problem that I'm seeing is is that we're also looking at a time. We're also looking at a time with this when everything is a hate crime. Most of these hate crimes are shown to be either at or around someone's home, the largest percentage of them. So I would question without seeing the individual reports, which nobody wants to parse through
Well,
8,000.
that would be just in. You would need a team of people and more coffee than is in Colombia to go through every single.
How many of these reports, and I'm sure you've seen this as much as I have, how many of these reports are people going, that dude walked by me and was mean to me? This is obviously a hate crime. How many reports are we seeing that, for instance, cops are shooting or arresting someone and then being accused of hate crimes?
Okay, so and they did, and if I remember correctly, yours was incidents of a single bias. So a single
Single and multiple biases.
single.
There's
Okay, single and multiple. Okay, so that means one or more protected classes for the hate crime. Okay.
one 8,000 single bias and then 86 multiple bias in the year of
Okay. Well,
2018.
listen, I'm going to be honest. That's good on you. The people, there were only 86 people who were able to commit multiple hate crime or a hate crime on multiple intersections at one point. So good on. That's lower than I thought. Um, so I guess so. I would say that there is a non-zero chance that there are no fake, and I use fake in the sense that you understand this is not an
Mm,
actual hate crime. There is a non-zero chance. Now, in order to determine how much it is, we have to undertake the Herculean task of parsing each case. Now, maybe we could do a cross section.
mm.
Say take 100 cases, and since there was 8,600 you said of single
Yeah,
use.
yeah.
Okay, maybe we take 800. Give us a nice 10% cross section, and then we could see of that how many are, because I'm sure we could find there would be some reporting of fake hate crimes in 2018 from some outlets, and not including, I'll say like some actually probably some very reputable outlets. Of if there was a fake hate crime, because that's going to make the rounds in certain segments of the media, especially just as Johnny Depp
Hmm.
was abused by his wife. That made the rounds on Twitter. Fairly, he had some decent traction.
So here's where I bring this up. The Trump presidency has been the presidency of critical race theory, has been the presidency of the what do you want to call it? The social war, the
The culture war. You can just say
culture
culture war.
war, the culture war. is this a result of the culture war? Is the increase a result of the culture war, not some tangible increase of like suddenly there's a rise in KKK members?
Well, I will say that according to certain people who, are a fan of Donald Trump, they believe that with Donald Trump being in power, they are able to push for certain policy goals and feel more empowered, emboldened to do certain actions. Now, how much of the population is that? I'm going to say that the people who would take actions based on the election, meaning Donald Trump's elected, I'm now going to do hate crimes. That's, I'm going to be honest, I think that's less than 1%.
Well, we also
Because
have to pause when we think of the hate crimes too, because another thing taken into account in the statistics is the Me Too movement.
the Me Too movement is a hate crime,
That was definitely hate crimes, man.
I'm not following.
So this is violence, domestic violence, or sexual violence against women. That would definitely
Okay.
qualify as a hate crime, yeah.
No. I don't know that. I don't know that it would fall under the statutes of a hate crime. It could be depending on how the prosecutor wants to charge it, because again, this all comes down to prosecutorial discretion if they want to charge a hate crime.
I would definitely think some of them, a large portion of them even, would be like, I'm pretty sure that Harvey Weinstein has multiple hate crimes against him for his.
Well, let's find out.
I would think so. I would say the large portion of them are. And even if they don't, well, they would have to be prosecuted to show up on the FBI statistics, wouldn't they?
Yes, they've been charged
But I would
with.
think that the Me Too movement would generate a ton of hate crimes.
So it seems he was charged with rape, criminal sexual act, sex abuse, sexual misconduct, but not a hate crime.
That seems odd to me because it seems like that should be a hate crime if we're going by the definition of what it is.
Well, again, it's prosecutorial discretion. When you add a hate crime, so it's not what you did so much in trials like that. It's what can I prove that you did. You have hate crime
But
requires
that seems like now this is me leaning hard fucking left here, but it seems like if you're gonna go, hey, listen, the only reason I went after this chick was because she was a hot chick. That seems like it qualifies for a hate crime.
I'm not saying that it not necessarily doesn't. But I'm saying as the as because when you rape somebody, you're committing violence against their body for whatever reason, and I feel like it's not animate. It's not and it's not animated by a sense of caring and love. You might think that you have a sense of caring and love. The other person is it's like boxing. If two people don't agree, somebody's committing a crime. So that'll be that. But I would say that again, with hate crimes, a lot like you have to prove a premeditative state. So and that can be very hard to prove. That's why first degree murder isn't prosecuted often, even though I'm sure that it happens more than it's prosecuted, because you have to take the time to plan the premeditation. That's what sets, and then there's a few other things that cause that. But that's from the legal aspect.
Okay, so we're kind of coming up wishy-washy on the rise in hate crimes and the reasoning behind it.
Well,
However,
no, we're coming up. We're coming up on the men on the Me Too movement. You had mentioned that it was a hate
yeah,
crime, and
right,
I'm
but
not
I'm saying like we're coming to the reasons why some of this increase of hate crime might have increased under the Trump presidency. And I was thinking of all of these cultural movements that are happening that could account for it.
Now, here's the question: how much of it do you believe is, let's say, the Mark Collette type people attacking people?
I don't know, man. That's my thing. I gotta wonder how much of it is Jesse Smollett and how much of it is like, I don't know,
Like Mark Collette,
yeah, him,
Jared Taylor,
yeah, some
people
of that
who are
stuff.
people who are friends of that. And again, that's why I'm asking you, because again, I will say that there's obviously out of 8,600 crimes that were reported, and we sure there were more that happened or pled down or something like that, because that's how our justice system works. We plead because if everybody went to trial, it would grind to a halt. And that may be a flaw in our system. Excuse me. But
So we have that, And we have
So
these other things that are happening in tandem, and Joe Biden's taking that hard left position that I believe is going to invigorate some of these groups into believing that there's more hate crime than there actually is. That's number one. Then we go down on his plan a little more, reinvigorate, and this is where we get to the cop stuff, reinvigorate community oriented policing.
now I like the idea of community oriented policing. I want the police officers who police an area to be valued members of the community. I want them, back in the 70s, there were policemen athletic leagues, and those were started in New York in order to, it kind of as a PR move by cops, in order to make them more palatable to the community, take it from being you're an outsider invading to you're a valued member of the community. I think that's a good thing.
Maybe, but it also, this, as you go down through this policy, it's telling you to do things that they're already doing. As a condition of the grant for the cops, quote unquote, program, the hiring of police officers must mirror the racial diversity of the community they serve. That's already something that happens anyways.
No, not necessarily. We saw that in Ferguson. We saw that in Ferguson. There were like more than 90% of the police force was white, and Ferguson was decidedly not. In fact, there's an interview that was done, or there was a piece that was done by John Oliver showing, and I know John Oliver's comedians, but they showed an actual interview of the sheriff in Ferguson at the time. Now, maybe there's been changes. Hopefully there has. I'll be honest, I haven't kept up to date on the minutia of the Ferguson Police Department hiring, but that it doesn't guarantee that. Now, as a condition of that
Well,
grant hiring,
it doesn't guarantee, but more often than not, it happens. Chicago has
I
a primarily black and Hispanic police force. San Antonio has a primarily Hispanic police force for a primarily Hispanic population.
but
Detroit's the same way, so on and so forth.
that's incidental. That's a matter of circumstance that happened because these people needed jobs. They decided to apply. I'll tell you that Cincinnati, mostly in some areas, mostly African American, has predominantly white police officer. District 1 is predominantly white,
But
and
couldn't
it's
that but couldn't that be incidental instead of the other way
sure,
around, where the
sure.
rest of these large cities have it?
What I'm saying is that unless you specifically choose to implement a policy and follow it, what happens is like rolling the dice. Now you can increase your odds because let's say hypothetically an environment is 97% racial group X, then there's a higher than average chance that every police officer recruit that you pick up will be of that X race group.
Okay, so we're there. That's what we're proposing. What Joe Biden's proposing for sure. Not counting the things he's, the random things he said.
I'm gonna go by his policy. And
That's
not
where his policy sits.
I mean, I'm seeing his policies here. I'm at the justice page just like you are.
And his
Uh,
policy leans left.
I would say that leans left, not far left, but I would say that leans left. I would say that definitely leans left in that sense. I'm not gonna lie. Joe Biden is while he's a moderate, he's more moderate Republican than he is Democrat. He does on social issues and racial justice issues. He, like you said, or like I mentioned earlier, in his old age, he's becoming more woke, and I think that's at least he can't undo the damage he did, but he can at least mitigate future damage.
So the question I would run to you then in this position, because we keep going back and forth, and I keep hearing you say that a lot of these Democrats are more like moderate Republicans. Isn't
Yeah,
that by itself just a shifting of the Overton window?
is
You're
it?
you're seeing these Democrats who are fighting for
So
classically Democratic positions as
the,
Republicans.
these aren't classically democratic. That's that we can go into that later, and we pull policy positions of earlier Democratic presidents. But the thing is that since Ronald Reagan, and I guess technically since Patco in 1979, so since Reagan, there's been an idea of Republicans will make a point, Democrats will try to triangulate around that. It got really big during the Bill Clinton years with the third way Democrats, and then they move further and further right. They try to scoop up the moderate Republicans, which they think will help them. We saw in this election, no Republicans that I know of voted for Biden. There might be some, but they didn't do that. So no, they are shift. The Overton window is shifting more and more to the right because of the Democrats, say the Republicans staking out a position that is antithetical to the Democrats, and the Democrats trying to meet them halfway. And then every cycle, it moves a bit more and more. That's why under Obama, we got the 1996 healthcare plan.
Okay, but hold on. Is that really
that was presented by the Heritage Foundation?
But is that really true? I mean, we see right now, Nancy Pelosi, the Republicans trying to meet Nancy Pelosi halfway with the latest stimulus bill, and her absolutely refusing unless it has God only knows what in it now.
Yeah, that's a political calculation she's making, just like Mitch McConnell would do. And finally, I'm surprised she's standing up for something. I'm surprised she didn't just take some money and give into that. But Mitch McConnell would do the same thing. That's political power games. And that's not necessarily left or right. That's both parties do that. Are you assuming that both parties don't do that?
Oh, no. I just think it's funny that, like, your position and people who think like you's position is that this entire thing is moving right. But what I'm seeing is that it's moving left. It's moving hard left. So, and if it's not moving left, especially with the culture war as it is, those who don't move hard left end up canceled or in some form of social pariah.
Okay, so what does canceling actually... Well, we can talk about canceling. You mentioned it a couple of times. What does canceling actually do?
Depends on what it is. Sometimes it does nothing. Sometimes it does absolutely nothing. And sometimes it ruins people's lives.
I was canceled by Talib Kweli, rapper from the 90s from New York, all that jazz, because I, a couple of years ago, decided to express my distaste of Brett Kavanaugh being nominated, but for different reasons than a young lady expressed. I did not like his legal precedents that he sided with. He sided with some trucking company that let somebody freeze to death up in Minnesota. I didn't like that. I thought, it's not great. Don't like that. It's how you rule. I'm not a fan of that. I was called many things. I was canceled by Talib Kweli, had a couple million followers attack me 2018, and I survived. It was fine. My reputation is not ruined. I'm bigger than I have ever been. Now, maybe it's because I'm Joe Nobody. I could be Joe Nobody. It's fine. But I gotta... Canceling only does something if you let it. It doesn't... I don't know...
That's not really true, though. Hold on.
Really?
So, they didn't call your job. They didn't call your job and threaten to do X, Y, and Z unless you was fired. They didn't file multiple complaints against you. And that happens to many people. There's many stories of people losing their jobs because they was canceled for being racist or sexist.
All right, I'm going to pull one up.
And that happens on both sides. I'm not going to say this is an exclusively left problem, but it tends to happen more to conservatives than it does liberals.
Than does liberals. And liberals are fine. I mean, I'm a little more left than liberal, but that's fine. We shorthand. Okay. So I'll take that the people on my side of the aisle tend to be more concerned with social justice and equity than the people who are on your side of the aisle. Now, that's whether that be good or bad, it's fine. I'm just saying that as for social justice and equity in social causes, we tend to be more concerned. As far as canceling, I mean, I guess the question is, have you tried not being racist? I mean, I don't think you're racist. You've said a lot of stuff here that I don't necessarily agree with. Sorry.
You're okay.
But fuck it. Peace broke. You've said a lot of things here that I don't necessarily agree with, but you've not said one racist thing. You know, and I mean, and we've disagreed on some stuff fairly vehemently. So I mean, I guess the question is, you know, I need to see why someone was canceled. You know, what caused that? And it comes down to individual issues. And then, of course, as you know, some people are going to have pet causes, right? Some people are just going to have pet causes, and they're going to grind an axe. and some people like to make noise.
Okay.
And that's
But
something like that.
should that be a thing? Should what you say online follow you around for the rest of your life?
Honestly, no. No,
Okay
you should
then.
be able to grow and learn. You
Welcome to
absolutely
the right wing, buddy.
no. It's the left. I believe in liberty and the principles of the Enlightenment,
No,
socialism.
after this conversation goes up, you are going to be officially labeled by your side as a Nazi. I guarantee you.
All right. Well, then I'm gonna and I'll be sure to drop Marxist Leninist points on him and be like, theory up, motherfucker. Because I'm not, because that's the thing. It's like you can call me whatever you want. I've been called a lot of things. I stream on
But
Twitch.
here's what I'm like I said, here's what I'm saying, man. This is where we end up with this election. We end up with low information people voting for a candidate that is against their interests, number one. And number two,
I'm
big
listening.
one, when you add information to the conversation, more often than not, the hard leftists or the like even Vosh agreed with Tim Pool half the time once he got all of the information.
I mean, maybe. Here's the thing. The question is not it's not maybe some of the principles that people say aren't so much left and right. It could be possible because again, it's I agree on problems, not solutions. So I think that gun violence in America is a problem. You probably agree at some level. You don't think gun violence in America is a problem?
I do not. I don't. The largest percentage of gun violence in America is suicide.
Okay, so here's a question. So why don't you name a problem? Just a problem, and we'll see if we can't. We'll see if I can't agree with it. Just a thought.
Okay. The violent rioting. That is a problem. That is a major problem.
I think the violent rioters are a problem. Now, how do we fix that? That's where we parse out things. That's where the left-right split happens. This is a take that I don't know if you're familiar with a gentleman by the name of Kyle Kalinske.
Yeah.
He was the guy on Joe Rogan podcast a couple of times. This is one of the things I watched a video and he said this and it made a lot of sense to me, which was you agree on problems, not solutions, because solutions are where the specifics and everything is executed. Problems are just essentially an acknowledgement of a problem. I think that you and I both think that burning a building in protest is
That's an issue. You're
is
banging.
usually-
That's an
usually-
issue.
Yeah, it's usually an issue. Now, let's say you burned a building in protest in North Korea. You're a brave motherfucker. Throwing that out there. I'm willing for you to come across the fence. Let's help out. But you see that's, and the reason I use that example is to illustrate for your audience and anyone who is in mind who decides to watch this, is that there's no codified rules to certain things. If I say burning buildings is always wrong, and they're like, well, what about the North Korea guy who's standing up for freedom and burned a prison camp? Was that bad? Well, no. Okay, well then burning buildings isn't always wrong. So there's nuance, and I think our political language suffers from a distinct lack of nuance.
Well, the
And
left,
that
and,
may-
well,
that may be-
the terminology for the left and right, as we're like even as I'm describing them right now, it doesn't really describe anything, because it's so contextual to what you want it to mean. It's so contextual to who you're talking to.
Well, there are meanings to things. I mean, we not to pull a lobster daddy, but words have meaning, and like when I pick up Marx over there and I read about commodity values and X and ingots and iron, those words have meaning.
Those words do have meaning, but we've lost the meaning to the words left and right. We've lost what liberal and conservative actually mean.
Well, or maybe they're being redefined, because we must remember in 1968 there was a political shift. There was a realignment.
But if we're redefining these terms, then they've lost their meaning.
Or their meaning is evolving. Because again, we're splitting semantics there. We're splitting that's a semantic thing. I'm not trying to be like, oh, I got you with some high mind.
No, I got you.
Okay, cool. I'm not. That's disingenuous, and I try not to go that route.
I got you. But what I'm saying is that the way it is used specifically by the left, and to a lesser extent by the right, they use liberal for everything, and it doesn't mean what they think it means. It doesn't mean what they use it for, or communist or socialist. It doesn't mean what they use it for. but more often than not, the terms alt-right, Nazi, etc., even Republican, get thrown at people who just, that's just not, patently not true.
So here's the thing. So I can never deductively know what's in your heart or your head. I can't know. I can only deduce things through your actions and what you believe in.
Mm-hmm.
Or not what I can, not what you believe in, but what you tell me and then what you do. I can Those are the only things I can actually see.
Words and
Uh,
actions.
yeah, words and actions. Okay, so from that, if your actions lead people to call you a Nazi, then the answer for your sanity, if you're on Twitter, is to probably just block that person, because that's not productive. But let's hypothetically say you're in a discoursing mood.
Mm-hmm.
The question then is, all right, what about my actions makes me a Nazi? Now, someone who's interested in reaching out and understanding stuff and expanding, and someone like me will take the time to explain, hey, this particular policy mirrors this particular policy which was implemented by X person in the Reichstag, as opposed to someone who might just be like, well, it's not my job to educate you. And if someone comes up with that, well, look, you've done all you can. You had your open mind, you tried, and then you were slapped down. And if somebody's not going to take the time, if someone says you're wrong and I know better, and they don't take the time to teach you, that is not an ally. That is someone who has a complaint. And if someone has a complaint, look, I got enough enemies to fight on the left. I got Marxist, Leninists, anarcho-socialists, people who like Bosch, people who don't like Bosch, people who think destiny is woke and based. I got all these people to fight. So when I reach out and I go across the aisle, I'm not there to fight. I'm there to be like, okay, well, let me explain. I think X behavior is not right. Here's why. And I find that most people, when I mention it, if they don't block me, because some people don't like that, are at least amicable to understanding. Okay, that's where you are. I don't agree.
Yes. But
So
again, we're back to these. I mean, that's a good way to do things. But we're back to the idea that these words are just being destroyed.
Some of them are being thrown around by people who have absolutely no idea what they mean.
And we have these same people, to tie it back to the original subject, we have these people wanting to elect a person that's going to push all of these things forward.
1 second, please. I'm just going to turn off my camera for a quick second. Just there. All right. My fiance came home and she signaled to me that she did not wish to be on camera. So it's fine. Like I said, that was one of her things. She's like, I just don't want to be there. And we're back. Okay. Hopefully it doesn't work. There we go. We're back. All right. I just for that. So I guess the answer is more education on the issues.
And do we want to allow Joe Biden to turn our country into what is essentially a list of failed communist or socialist states?
Which one? Tell me the one that we'd be turning into, hypothetically.
I don't know. Which policy do we want to start with? Do we want to start with the policies of allowing people to seize the means of production?
I mean, there's a whole bunch of different stuff on the left. I'm thinking they're trying to go more like Denmark, Sweden, less because I'm not a tanky, less USSR. I think they're trying to go Denmark, Sweden more than anything. And if you mention Venezuela, you gotta also mention the sanctions they've been under for the past 30 years.
I mean
that's the thing. Economic sanctions are a thing. They up until 2008, Citgo used to donate heating oil to people in the Midwest.
Okay.
So
where
I'm saying,
are we going with this?
What I'm saying is if they were so failed and poor, I use Venezuela as a joke there, but it's true. they used to, Citgo is the Venezuelan petroleum company. They used to have a subsidy of oil that got sent to the United States for heating in the Midwest until 2008.
Okay, but since probably 2018, I believe 2018, maybe 2019, we've been energy independent under Donald Trump through a capitalist society.
I mean, have we been energy dependent? And
yes.
how long does that last for? Because
until we
if we don't transition to renewable fuels, fossil fuel runs out. There's only
Yes.
so much of it. We've already reached peak oil.
I'm not disagreeing with that. At some point, we're going to have to do that. But Joe
So
Biden wants to do that within his presidency. And
yeah,
again, we're pushing things
look,
left.
Europe has had energy zero buildings for decades.
I mean, is that true, though?
Yeah, yeah. There's yeah.
Let's
Sweden
let's
has
take the
maglev trains.
let's take the electric car for instance. The electric car ends up creating more carbon and through more fossil fuel use than it does.
Then we don't use the electric car. I'm not advocating for the electric car.
Then how do we change over?
How do we change? We use mass transit. Maglev trains work well. Tokyo and Japan has had bullet trains for decades that are way more efficient than what we have.
Okay,
Also,
but they are built for mass transit. How many
also
cities in the United States are built for mass transit?
looks like we're creating more jobs.
We're creating more jobs
Yeah,
by
if we need to redefine our infrastructure, then that creates a lot of jobs, a lot of good paying jobs, by the way.
yeah, but that also creates a problem with the left who don't want to do that. By the way, they don't want to do that because
Do what?
then it creates gentrification.
No. No, it only creates gentrification if you implement gentrification. You can always parse out sections for low income housing. That's happened. You write that in when you have the proposal. I mean, New York has, I know New York's not the greatest example of it, but they do have a thing where new units have to have a certain amount of low income or rent controlled units, and I think we should expand that a little bit.
Then
And
what
we also
is the
need to
left? What is BLM? Why is BLM out protesting in neighborhoods like in Louisiana, complaining about gentrification? Then
because they want to decommodify housing.
how do you decommodify housing without taking away people's right to own property?
You can still own property. There's nothing wrong with that. You just need to provide two options. You need to have your private option and your public option. Your private option can have all the frills and all the things. Your public option is no nonsense, bare bones. And then that way, if people want the private option, okay, you can afford it, great, go nuts. If not, okay, well, public option. Salt Lake City did this with a couple of years ago with their homeless population. They gave all their homeless people one-bedroom Spartan apartments, and their costs actually went down because they cut down on emergency room visits and triage care. They actually saved $11,000 per homeless person per capita.
Mm-hmm.
They did that. That was Salt Lake City, not a left place.
I don't know.
It's not. The Mormons are not left. It was only in 1975 that they let black people join. They're still working on figuring out. Mitt Romney, listen, he might be like, who let the dogs out? Who? But somebody told him that line. He didn't know that line.
Yeah, but still, we run into this problem. Where one of Joe Biden's things is canceling rent. The Bernie Sanders thing, canceling rent.
Yeah.
Well, how do you cancel rent?
You do it through an act of Congress.
Okay, who pays the taxes for those landlords?
Are you familiar with MMT?
And who pays? Not only who pays the taxes, who pays the house? Who pays the payments for those landlords?
So what we do, if you want a quick, let's say a draft proposal, right? Because that's what you're looking for. All right. So first, we forgive rent. Boom. Give rent to the renters. All right. First problem solved. We keep people in their houses. That way, during a pandemic, they're not out spreading things. Great. Second, we create forms through the IRS and through Congress and through other actions to allow the landlords to recoup those losses either through tax relief for a multiple number of years based on how much they spent, or on cash payments and stimulus to them so that they can have that stuff going. And then from there, if it comes to a public debt, we can forgive that because we control our own currency. We can literally just write it off. It's MMT. Japan's been doing it for decades, and they're fine.
Okay. Now hold on. So we have that. We've got two levels here. Now who pays for the city services that have to continue while all of this stuff is paused?
We do that through, again, the federal government.
And who pays the federal government to come up with all this currency?
We print it, and then we can forgive the debt because we owe it to ourselves.
So we pull money out of thin air?
Yes, that's called MMT. Japan has been doing it for decades, and they're fine.
They're fine, but they're also not trillions of dollars in debt.
They're they use yen, but they are actually they would be in debt if they kept it on record, but they just forgive it because it's paid to themselves. Also, we have a special standing as the world's reserve currency, which allows us to take a little bit more risky action. We have the ability to do this.
We're just going to print money and pull it out of thin air. And that makes sense?
Yeah, under MMT, under modern monetary theory, that makes sense. Because again, we control our own currency.
Mm-hmm.
We are the world's fractional reserve currency. That gives us way more economic power. One of our states, one which you're not a big fan of, is the 4th largest economy in the world. We have the money to do this if we decide to spend it. Now, here's the thing. You may be like, but Nim, why don't we cut some costs somewhere? Perfect. I'm there. I'm with you. Let's pull out of Afghanistan, Iraq, Somalia, Nigeria. There's a couple other places. Let's pull out of those places. Because
we can't do that.
Why not?
Because then you end up with another ISIS. You create a power vacuum when you do that.
We created ISIS.
You create but you create a further power vacuum and another group comes up and then you just end up right back there.
I mean, let's use Afghanistan as an example. The Taliban controls more of Afghanistan now than when we first went in back in 2001. And another year, that war gets a gold watch. Be like, it was 2 days away from retirement.
I got you. But we're still at the point where all of this has to be paid for somewhere. We can't just that's just not how economies work.
No. That's not how supply side economies work. MMT economies absolutely work that way. Demand side economies can work that way. Keynesian economics. And
so we're just going to print money, pay for all of these salaries for city workers, forgive all of this debt, and everything just comes for free?
Okay, so why don't we take a look at some of the models that have been done right now, right? So France is instead of laying people off, they temporarily nationalize the industries and they're paying 75% of wages. Mm-hmm. That allows people to live a little leaner but maintain their lives. And then once those industries are back into profitability to where they wouldn't be a loss and wouldn't let people, go under, then the private sector reasserts control. So if we temporarily nationalize industries, that's another thing that can happen to solve this.
There's 2 problems with that. 2 problems. Number one, we've already lost so many businesses they're just closed. They're never coming back.
Under whose administration?
Under Trump's administration, of course.
Yeah,
but I can't deny that, number one, but I also can't really blame Trump for a worldwide pandemic.
Of course,
just not something I'm going to do.
I'll on record, Trump did not cause the coronavirus. There's no way that he did that. It's not. You can't.
For the people out there who I know are going to be in my comments going, yeah, but he could have done blah, 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 and he shouldn't have done X, Y, and Z. Listen, the people that Joe Biden didn't want him to bring back were American citizens. The people that were complaining brought this over here. I'm sorry, they're American citizens. We can't leave them stranded for months on end when we close our borders. That's just not going to happen. That's not what we do here.
Okay. I mean, that's I can understand. Well, if you don't respect your own brand, no one else is going to respect your own brand. So right. I can see that being a thing. Now, do I think, and I think we both can agree, that the pandemic was not handled as well as it could have been? Now, it could have been handled worse, could have been handled better, but it's one of those. I'm trying to be conciliatory here because I don't want to make sure.
I just don't know. I don't know if it could have been worse or better. I don't think there's any real right answer to a decision like this.
It absolutely could have been worse. We could have done no lockdowns. Said don't even worry about masks or anything like that, and then let people kind of just burn through it. Basically,
a la Sweden.
Yeah, Sweden did some interesting things with that, and they don't again. Just because one thing is good about a country doesn't mean all things are good about a country.
I understand. I understand. I understand it. I see the map all the time of people going, well, why does Texas have more coronavirus cases than most of Europe? And it's the size of most of Europe, most of the UK. So
Texas is a couple of countries in Europe plus Luxembourg. On the end. But no, what I'm going to say is that it could have been worse if we didn't do any lockdowns, didn't do any social distances, and just let everybody get sick. Because the problem is once hospitals are at capacity, then every other case is untreated, every other accident, every other sickness, every other surgery is untreated, and you have this ramping wave of death. Now, that didn't happen. That was the idea behind flattening the curve, is that if we can stay below capacity, then we can get a
I
handle on
got
it.
you. I got you.
Yeah,
What I'm saying though is I don't think there was a worse way to handle it than how we handled it. We did the best we could with the information we had. And I don't think there was a better way we could handle it because we was simultaneously juggling the same
I
problems
think
as
I,
everybody else.
I think having being notified of its seriousness a little earlier would have been helpful, a la Bob Woodward. And I think Bob Woodward holds some moral culpability in not releasing that information earlier. I think not canceling the plan for the post office to ship out 5 masks to every household with instructions on how to use. I think that could have been done, which would have been helpful. That plan was nixed. I think not dismantling the pandemic task force would have also been helpful. Now, with that being said, pandemic task force are kind of fungible. Obama expanded it, contracted it, expanded it again, contracted it again, expanded it.
I
So it's
mean,
fungible. So
well,
I'm
hold
not.
on. Let's pause here for a second. Let me address a couple of things. Number one, the post office thing got nixed because under Dr. Fauci's recommendation, we needed to the government needed to keep as many of those masks as possible to distribute to hospitals and healthcare workers.
That's a reason. We also did send 280 million masks to China in March.
They
So I mean that might now I'm not xenophobic, but if everybody has a pandemic and we all need the supplies, I think we should take care. I think we should have, we shouldn't pay to ship our needed supplies if we
Right,
have a.
and this comes from this is the issue with listening to with Joe Biden's plan of listening to one set of experts instead of all of them. Joe Biden wants to just listen to the medical experts on this, but we need to listen to economists, et cetera, et cetera. But there's that. There is the task force, and this always gets brought up. Unfortunately, this isn't a Donald Trump thing, even though he's in charge of the administration. His health department just decided to cut the program because it was just wasting funding.
Now, of course, hindsight is 2020. I'm not gonna penalize somebody for that, because that's like me saying, "Why'd you get hit by a car?" I told
And
you
that
yesterday.
happened. Yeah, that happened in early 2019 or maybe late
Yeah, I'm not.
2018.
What I'm saying, and that's why I said it was fungible, because Obama had both contracted and expanded that same task force. And it just so happens that COVID happened this year as opposed to last year or next year.
Yeah.
So that's why I said I'm not trying to play gotcha games here.
So
I
that's why I'm saying, like, I don't think there really was a better way to handle this thing that came out of left field. We listened to the expert, we did what he wanted us to do, and now we're continuing to listen to him, but it seems like it's not good enough.
What about using the National Defense Production Act?
I mean, if you have to use it, sure.
You,
But it
I think,
seemed like he was asking, and there was one company. I can't remember if it was Ford or one of the other, maybe General Motors, that he was talking about using it against if they would not willingly come to the table. But everybody else, we just called them up and asked them. The Trump administration did ask them to switch to producing X, Y, and Z, and they did.
now and that's good. I'm glad that I know Tesla volunteered, to build some respirators, which is nice of Elon Musk and Tesla to do that. The other thing I do want to ask is, do you remember the bidding war for supplies? Because
Yes.
originally it was that. Now, do you think that was conducive to a healthy pandemic response to have states bid against each other for supplies? Because some states are naturally, like California, much more wealthy than, we'll say, Mississippi.
Okay, so this is the fun part of this. If we don't have states bidding for supplies and we don't have states procuring supplies on their own, we have the federal government overstepping its constitutional authority.
Not under the National Defense Production Act.
Unfortunately, using the National Defense Production Act when there's other options available,
Is
as
totally
there
valid.
was,
Is totally valid.
it just seems like an overstep.
You want to treat pandemics like you want to treat World War II. We told, like, no, you make these things, solve this, because again, there's 200,000+ dead Americans. Now, we can argue the numbers on, is all of that COVID, is some of it COVID, did they have COVID and they died and they marked it as COVID? I'm not there to argue the numbers. I
No,
just
no,
know
no.
there's a lot of dead people, and I think that there is a time and a place for the federal government to assert its supremacy, and a global pandemic is one of those times.
I don't think so. I don't. And here's why.
Fine.
Because the
Yeah.
system worked as intended. Even though there was issues, the system still worked as intended. The state still was able to receive supplies. There was issues getting them in an extra timely manner, but they still received them, and the states that were most affected, a la New York and California, still received the supplies the fastest, the quickest, and when they
Look,
was most needed.
they paid the most
That's also
per
true.
unit. And here's the thing though. We don't.
But the federal government is reimbursing them.
No, that's good. That's fine. I'm not worried about the cost
No, no,
so
no.
much.
But I'm saying instead of Donald Trump coming over, and we know what the public reaction to Donald Trump's administration taking control and forcing the states to do things would be. So instead of complicating the situation with this sudden revolt against an authoritarian regime, we now have capitalist competition that may or may not have been conducive to a faster response, but it still ended up with a better result.
I think it would have been better if we had a unified front from the beginning, issuing orders like you would in a military unit, like, hey, okay, you produce, you produce, you produce, you produce, go, and then we'll pay you these rates like they did back in World War II. I think that would have been better, because then you take out the price, the profit motive, and you just get things to people when they need them. And that's I think that would have been better. But you and I have a philosophical disagreement
That might have been
upon that.
better, but do you or do you not believe that people would have went out because they're doing it right now, revolting against
I think I,
authoritarianism?
I think Rand Paul would have thrown a fit on the Senate, but he always throws a fit on the Senate. I
I
think the
think the
people
people would have.
I think the people who got masks and PPE, the nurses and things, would have been like, "Thank you for taking charge of this situation." I think Wolf Blitzer would have finally, or not Wolf Blitzer, but the guy who friggin' was like, Donald Trump was our president when he launched missiles. The Brian Williams. I think Brian Williams would have been like, he acted like a president tonight because he took charge of a situation and handled it effectively. I think that doing that by executive order would have only helped him, outside of Rand Paul being like, ah.
I
But
don't think
that's
so. I think, and
fine.
this is where
We're
we
gonna
can
disagree
differ.
there.
But I think what would have happened is we would have saw earlier rioting against the lockdowns, earlier rioting in the streets against the authoritarian regime and the fascists, and we would be in an even worse situation because the
I
primary driver of coronavirus since, let's say, George Floyd died in what, April? Since April has been the BLM protest.
I'm assume you have data on that.
I mean, do I
I get
need data? Do I need a bunch of
Yeah,
data when I have personal
yeah.
experience being downtown in major cities with 60,000 people, some of which are and are not wearing masks?
I mean, I'm gonna, because you made a claim that it is the majority, that is the lion's share of cause it. Now, am I gonna say that it's not caused? Of course not. I'm sure there were people there I'm sure there were more than one person who didn't wear a mask, and you can create problems there. But like, yeah, I'm gonna need to see some data on that.
Okay, what is the primary thing that large groups of people have been out in public doing night after night since, let's say, April?
Primary thing. Well, there's been a lot of people been doing a lot of things, but there have been protests, if that's what you're talking about, and
There's been
riots. Protests
protesting and
and riots.
rioting.
Yeah. So what your claim is, and I understand that you're trying to reason me there, but when you make a concrete claim, sometimes I let it go, sometimes I don't. This is one where I'm not gonna let it go. You said that was the majority. That was
Hmm?
the thing, and that means that I'm gonna need to see some contact tracing to prove that.
I
And
mean,
because here's the thing: what if, like, I could say, you know who? There were a lot of rallies that were done too, and some people who were occasionally skeptical are no longer with us. Sorry, Little Caesars, you lost a good one, I guess.
I totally believe the political rallies, even Donald Trump rallies, are also a driver. But the only consistent thing, the only consistent large public gatherings we have is going to be.
Without investigation, you cannot say that for certain.
I might
You
not
can
be.
only,
I
you can only imply it, you can
That's
try to
true. I can also put two and two together. And
well,
two
who's
number
gonna
one is when people are in close quarters, coughing with each other, marching and breathing heavily, because that's what we've been told. Breathing heavily underneath your mask negates the protection from the mask. When people are in close quarters doing that, they're spreading the virus if they've been infected.
some of our greatest science achievements are not intuitive, and that includes in the field of medicine. So again, like I said, I'm going to need to see some data, or we're just
I
going to have
can't
an impact
I
on my
can't
health.
show you any data because the media refuses to cover it. As a matter of fact, you know what they said? You know what the media said? New York Times said this. Black Lives Matter rallies actually cause a decrease in coronavirus cases.
Well, let's read through that article.
Was it the New York Times? There's an article out there that says that.
All right, okay. So I
I'm
can
pretty
pull
sure
it
it's
up.
New York Times, but
That's fine. I can pull it up on Google. It was Black Lives Matter
decrease.
causes decrease in COVID. All right, so here we go. So let's see. It's from IFL Science. That's IFL Science isn't a thing. Now there is a paper done from Northwestern or Northeastern University.
Here, it's right here, CNN.com.
Okay, yeah, have
In
not
fact,
led like
researchers
it.
have determined that social distancing behaviors went up after the protest as people tried to avoid them altogether.
Well, I mean,
Our
that's what
findings suggest that any direct decrease in social distancing amongst the population participating in the protest is more than offset by increasing social distancing behaviors amongst those who shelter at home or circumvent public places while the protests are underway.
All right, so I'm going to need the link to that because I think I might be on the different one because I've got one that says Black Lives Matter protests have not led to a spike in coronavirus cases. Research says this was June 24th.
Okay, stand by. I'm going to show everybody this.
It's fine. I may not be able to see it, but that's okay.
Now, I'm going to show everybody this real quick. Just run them through. And here's where it says that, boys and girls. And then I'm going to send you this link.
Okay, that's fine. What I want to say is like, if we maybe the methodology of the research is flawed, but I want to see the research. I need to see the numbers because otherwise I just have feelings. And when we get into science, I'm an engineer.
So this is what I'm telling you, that the mainstream media won't cover any increase in it because anything negative against BLM or Joe Biden does not get hit.
Are you familiar with how you gain notoriety in medicine and scientific fields?
By publishing a lot.
Yes, that's one way. The much more grant gaining and let's say sexy way is to disprove narratives that are public. Now, that's why there were people who, with microbiology is always so contentious because you run about the bacterial flagellum, which happened in Dover in 2005. There was a big case about that. Broke down the bacterial flagellum in Dover, Ohio. But what I'm going to say is that if this were a conspiracy, then there would be people want clicks. So counter narratives get picked up, especially if they have data backing it. So when we have data, we can make assertions about reality because a lot of science and a lot of medicine is not intuitive. You, as a strong man, would not think 500 years ago that something you can't see would kill you. But lo and behold, it can. Germ theory. So I'm gonna need data. Now, if there's a problem with the methodology that we can look at that. But I'm gonna need data.
Yeah,
And
like I said, every major data point says the opposite.
Of what?
That says that there's no cause, that Black Lives Matter protests are not causing any increase.
All right. So are you familiar, or at least, so they say is it a noticeable or any? Because that's a different story.
It's not causing an uptick in cases, and like I said, a la that CNN article, it's actually decreasing cases.
Okay, so here's the question: are you familiar with something called Occam's razor?
Yeah.
Okay, so either the science that people have done is true, or there's a huge conspiracy between the media, science, medicine, and let's say another nebulous amount of forces. What do you believe is more likely?
In this case, the latter.
So you believe that, just so I'm clear, that instead of the science, which is done, researched, peer reviewed, published, you believe that there is scientists, medicine, researchers, things like that, media, and other forces all working together to
In this case, yes.
okay to what?
100%. And here's why. Here's why.
Hold on.
Number one, because you can peer review anything. Peer review does not mean what we think it means.
I'm using. Hold on. I use scientific terms when I talk about scientific language. Peer review means from a respected journal, a respected organization.
Okay.
So that's that. Now, if you're using it as a layman's term, yeah, you could peer review something in popular mechanics, I'm sure. But I'm talking about the gold standard things like Nature, Johns Hopkins, the Mayo Clinic. And again, I'm willing to say if the methodology is wrong, let's look at the methodology.
Okay. So, research.net publication. Human reactions to rape culture and queer performativity at urban dog parks in Portland, Oregon.
I know the one thing. There is a difference between social sciences and hard sciences.
Okay. But let me ask you this, okay? Because we're going to take Occam's
Nature, by the way. That wasn't published in Nature. That wasn't published in Mayo Clinic. That wasn't published in Johns Hopkins. That wasn't published in Yale's Medicine Diary. That was published in a study for journal and for gender studies something. I'm familiar with the fake out study.
Okay, stand by a second.
All right. Dad man.
Being a dad is crazy when you're trying to do a 2+ hour interview.
Yeah. I got about a half hour left, just letting you know.
That's fine. We should probably wrap up at some point anyways, but let's go through this.
We're going to go all right. All right.
Let's go through this. So what is more likely? And this is personal experience. I was downtown in Houston in April for George Floyd's pre-funeral rally.
Okay.
His family was out, the whole thing. There were 65,000 plus people. There was enough people in one area downtown that I could not get a live stream out on a 5G network because of the amount of people using cell phones.
Okay.
So many people.
You are postulating that was an increase. That specific action of these people caused a spike in the number of coronavirus cases
in Houston. Let's limit this to Houston. Would Occam's razor not say that amount of people in that enclosed space would cause a spike in cases in that city?
Occam's razor applies to intuitive things. Intuitively, it would apply. However, we have better methods of gathering data, such as research, which I would ask for numbers.
Nobody wants to research this.
I disagree. A lot of people want to. Are you kidding me?
I guarantee you that no mainstream media article will print or outlet will print an article that says Black Lives Matter is responsible for X, Y, and Z. They won't do it with the riots. They won't blame them with the riots. They won't blame them when they're burning buildings down. Do you think they're going to blame them for the coronavirus?
I think that regardless of what organization it is, I think that the data can stand on its own. And so how you build notoriety in scientific communities is by upsetting previously understood narratives. So if, hypothetically, there was a scientist or a team of scientists and researchers that were organizing how COVID spread, and they could do contact tracing back to that particular march that you had mentioned, and see that, hey, we can actually see from patterns of behavior and patterns of spreading that this caused a spike, that would be reported, because right now people have a vested interest in living, and COVID, for whatever reason, whether it be weakened immune systems or whatever, has some potential for lethality. So
it does, But
What I'm gonna
let me pause you here. Let me pause you here, okay? I get where you're going with this, and I'm not fully disagreeing with you. But here's where I want to throw a wrench into your thought process.
All right, I'm listening.
There's no data that shows churches, synagogues, shopping at Walmart, drinking at a bar increase the spread either. But we
Well,
believe those things.
let's take a look here. So let's see what we got here. Did okay, so let's try. Does going to let's start with church, right? Going to church uh increase
Increase the spread of
the
coronavirus.
spread of okay, thank you. Spread of COVID-19. All right. So here we go. That's from the CDC. Here that says I think that's just millions of Americans embrace worship. That's gonna be just a big thing. Okay, high COVID attack among attendees at events. So that's from May. Impact church emerges May. So in New York Times from after the Black Lives Matter thing. This is from the New York Times. Churches were eager to reopen. Now they are confronting coronavirus cases, and of course, there's a friggin' paywall. New York Times, you are not independent journalism. I'm just gonna say
Right.
that.
So
Like,
if
don't
churches, if they're going to claim without said data that churches do, because they're not going to give you hard numbers. I know what you're talking about.
I can look at if I went through the paywall, I could most likely look at the methodology. Now that being said, I did not go through the paywall, so I can't say for certain if there's a methodology to that. I do know that the things I linked from or the things that I mentioned with Northeastern it does have a methodological section which we could go over.
Hold on, we're right here, because I have a subscription because of what I do.
Makes sense.
More than 650 cases have been linked to religious facilities.
Okay.
All right, this is from, I don't know when this is from. It's from July 10th of 2020. And we go down, and basically what they do is in New York, they're downplaying the role. Here we go. They're downplaying the role religion plays in the lives of Americans, et cetera, but new cases are emerging. And they end with 80 cases linked to Kanakaw Camps, a Christian youth camp. Fort Myers, Florida, high school orchestra member who attended a party at her church, possibly infected 100 other kids, et cetera, et cetera.
All right.
But it's not hard scientific data. It's just, hey, we think this is what happened.
Well, hold on. So they say that they linked cases to, right?
They're saying yes, that this is where we're thinking this contact tracing is here.
Okay, so well, if they say that they're linked, they say they're linking it to, then they would have done some type of contact tracing to determine that. And so
right.
that's what
they're not linking the hard scientific data, though, right?
Well, no,
they're not linking the numbers. They're just saying that.
Well, no, because if I go through with a scientific survey, right, and I'm asking, okay, Rabbit, where were you? Okay, you were.
I get what you're saying, and I get how contact tracing works. What I'm telling you though, is that where are the articles linking people back to Black Lives Matter rallies? And why are there goose egg?
Okay, I'm gonna say that I mean I'm sure someone has done some work into that. Look into that.
You just looked. We both just looked. They don't exist. As a matter of fact, the opposite exists. They're saying that they cause a decrease.
Then I suggest you get ready to win a Nobel.
I have no idea how to contact trace. I'm sorry. I can't do that.
Okay, so I can give you a little bit of estimation and on how to do this because I am a scientist at heart and as an engineer. So here's the thing: is I would contact some of your local medical people and see if you can't draw that in. And instead of framing it as BLM did X on April 4th, I think that's what it was. It was April 4th.
I think so. I think it was somewhere.
Okay. Anyways, sometime early April, there was a very large rally. Now I'm thinking that's increasing the causes of that's increasing the amount of COVID-19 and the spread. How would we track that down? From there, you speak to the scientist people, and believe it or not, a lot of scientists are very interested in talking to you because very few people take interest in what they do. It's a lot of it is just writing papers and things. So that's where you start. And if you can upset that narrative, and let's say that narrative isn't true, right? Let's say it's not true. Um, then you're going to completely become the scientist who does that is going to become famous. And once you're famous, you get grants, and it makes life easier for things, and you can publish books and do talks. It happened with Lawrence Krauss. Sadly, he had hey, it wasn't great at Arizona. He did a lot of extracurricular activities. But that's neither here nor there at this point in time. So what I'm saying is do that. Now, without me being able to look at the methodology behind what those claims are, I can't verify those claims because that's the same standard I gave you with BLM. And
Okay.
I'm not going to be a hypocrite and say, oh, well, it's because it's in a church. It absolutely counts. For lack of a better word, I'm not taking it as gospel.
Okay. So here's what we're gonna do. Here's what we're gonna do. I'm
ready.
going to show you something. I'm going to show everybody else something. And this is where we're going to hand you a little proof because there's no studies for it. Okay?
Okay.
So, type into your Google search box Houston COVID-19 cases April 2020.
COVID-19 cases 2020. Okay.
All right. And then in a second search box, you can type in George Floyd protest Houston 65K. And it'll show you the ABC article from June 3rd. That's where I was. It wasn't April, it was June.
I mean, look, it's fine. I'm not gonna hold you on to that. George Floyd, what was it, 65K?
Yeah. George Floyd protest Houston 65K.
Okay,
It was actually
protest
60,000, but whatever.
Houston. Okay, and then I'll just get that there, and we'll do this.
So we've got a date on that article for June 3rd. All right. Let's go back to the Houston tab, right? Let's go to June 3rd and see the cases.
Okay, so just before we get started, you do know there is an incubation period. You would actually have to look about 2 weeks past that.
Yeah, just wait. Just wait.
Okay.
Just watch.
Where am I going specifically for this?
On the graph, June 3rd.
I don't see a graph.
There should be a graph. If you type in Houston COVID-19 cases April 2020, the first thing it comes up.
Do you mean June 2020?
Yeah, I put in April, but you can put in June. I put in April, so it goes all the way back to April.
I don't have that. I have videos, Click to Houston, Woofed, Business Insider, New York Times, Expressive News, Houston, Texas Gov.
That's funny. Mine brought me up a graph.
Yeah, I've got images of Houston, of people in masks and things, but I do not have a graph.
Here's what we'll do. I'll screen share with you.
All right, let's take a look here.
Go live. There we go. I'll screen share with you.
Now I can.
Okay, can you see this now?
I see. Yeah, I see you down there.
Okay. See my little graph? All right, let's go to.
No, I see you and a Discord.
What about if I pull that down? Can you see that now?
No, I see the stream pause dead. Rabbit has minimized their application. Sit tight.
Sad face. Okay.
I'll tell you what. Why don't you send me the link via Discord and I can pull it up on mine. Click on the image and I can pull it up on mine.
Okay, here we go.
That might solve that.
We're gonna make this happen.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Okay. Now I'm gonna exit full screen, and there we go.
All right.
That up. There we go. All right, so now we're here. Okay, so now I see a spike in April. So let's take a look at. Let's change that to June real quick, because that's the claim you're making.
Yep. There should be a little graph right there.
Okay, cool, good. It shown up as April. All right, so we see. So here we go. Let's go to. So I see. June 3rd.
June 3rd. There's going to be 1,580 cases.
Okay. Yeah. June. There it is. Yep. 1,580. You are correct.
Then we can go all the way up the spike for the 2 to 3. The 2 to 3 week incubation period. June 16th. It spikes at 15,000 cases.
Okay. Now, here's the thing. Here's where we're gonna talk proof. All right. So, in order to claim that something does something, you have to demonstrate it. Now, the claim is that it didn't. What was the claim? What was the claim?
that
Because
the
I want to I understand it.
Okay. That the media is not allowing Black Lives Matter rallies, protest riots, etc., to be blamed for the spike in coronavirus cases, despite
Okay.
them being the only consistent major public events happening over the last like 120 days now, 130
Despite,
days.
well, people were still always going about their lives. They were going out, they were shopping, they were going to grocery stores, going to medical centers. Also, there have been people touching things. Again, I see, and I can see why you would make this link, because when you get these two things together, they seem to connect themselves. That right now is what's known as a correlation causation fallacy. Correlation does not equal causation. Now, if we can contact trace back and make sure everything is and do that through testing and not non-biased contact tracing, we could find a result. But right now, we have a correlation causation fallacy.
You
There
mean
is a
like
cor-
you mean like
there.
saying that large gatherings of people makes less coronavirus cases than more?
No, what I'm saying is your claim is that increased the Black Lives Matter protests for George Floyd, or the Black Lives Matter protests in general, have caused an increase in coronavirus.
Hmm.
My answer is, without data showing that, we have correlation, not causation. I need causation to determine what actually caused that. Now I see an increase, but if we look at if we look at other graphs, we will see an increase in coronavirus over the course of that same time period without protesters being in those cities. So that's why it's a correlation causation fallacy.
I got you, and I see what you're saying, but simultaneously, does this not lend credence to the idea that the media and various scientists would rather just not blame Black Lives Matter?
If you are suggesting that there are some people who will take a politically expedient route as opposed to reporting hard truths, the answer is yes. Some people will
All
do
right
that.
then.
Now, do I think that they are doing that in this case? I can't say, but I do know that I have met many cowards in my life, and I'm sure to meet more. That's why I had a photo on Twitter the other day where and I mentioned it was some content creators. Oh, I can't be political on stream. Brand X won't work with me, and then it's me in my Bernie Sanders shirt like this, like me on a slow day. Like I'm out about who I am. Like it's you know some people be like, Nim, no one's ever accused me of being dishonest about what I believe in. You just get me talking, you'll know, and
All
then you'll be
right.
like, shut up.
I got you. I got you. All
I
right.
know.
So let's wrap up here. We're about 2.5 hours in, and I think we've
Jesus
went long
Christ.
enough.
Boy, I mean, that's a
This
long
is
boxing match.
this is gonna take forever to upload to BitChute. Like we was
I'm
talking about this before we started.
God, I'm sorry.
This is gonna
I
take forever. This is
I'll
gonna
see
be
you,
on YouTube long before it's on BitChute.
I'll see you in February.
All right. So right now, here's where we're at.
Okay.
And here's where I want to end this. We have
Okay.
Georgia with 98% reporting, but
Ooh.
being refused to call for Trump, even though it looks like he's got about 40,000 votes ahead. North Carolina, 94% reporting. Trump is 1.4% ahead with almost 100,000 votes. PA, Trump is sitting comfortably at 200 plus thousand votes, 87% reporting.
Now, I assume, are you looking at the Associated Press one on
Yeah,
Google?
yeah, just the
Okay,
Google Associated
yeah,
Press one.
same here. That's mine. Okay, so from what I understand, and I saw this earlier today in my when I was at work, my boss is a fan of Fox News. He watches Fox News, and I saw we were comparing results. At the time, the Associated Press had said it was 248. Fox had already moved to 264. So I think that these individual I don't know, for lack of a better word, polling displayers are calling it. I don't know if they're calling it early in order to scoop people, or they're holding back in order to build clicks. But I would say that, let's go to Georgia with 98% reporting. I mean, that would be a simple matter of the voting population and doing the math at 2%. to see if that can shift more than 0.8%. I mean, that's what I would say there, because again, there's only so many votes in a country because
Mhm.
we only have so many people. So and I would say that would be the thing to do. And and then we can get on with the court cases wherever they tend to be. I know we already have 4, but hey, we can do better. We can get those numbers up. I mean, I say that obviously sarcastically and sardonically. I mean, it's just like, oh my
Those are
god,
rookie numbers, champ. You need to pump
yeah,
that up.
something like that. But yeah, no, I think that I think people are holding off on that, probably to do big announcements tomorrow. I know Nevada was thinking about releasing their numbers, I believe tomorrow at 9 a.m. That was something I'd seen somewhere. I don't have the link to it, so that
Mhm.
being said,
That's fine.
but yeah, I obviously, as you and I both know, this is a horse race spectacle. We got to get that money while the election is going. If you're a news organization.
Yeah.
I mean, so that's that. As for that, this has been a lovely conversation. Surprisingly, you know what's crazy? I don't think you're a Nazi. I don't think you're a Nazi.
Oh God.
It's crazy. Yeah, like I held up Marx, and you were fine. You were like, I don't agree with that, but that's a book.
I
Sure.
mean, should I have caught on fire? Is that what should have happened?
No, no, no. That's what the manifesto. The manifesto causes people to catch on fire. Or get very bearded. Engels had just a crazy beard. Yeah, I mean, even more than you. I mean, it was big, it was white, it was Santa Claus. Or you get the Ben Garrison cartoon mock-up, which really funny, where you see that. So it's fine. But yeah, I had a fun time talking. We got to go back and forth a little bit on contentious issues. I honestly think that outside of economics, you and I are pretty close to stuff.
You know,
I mean,
the guy who was running the Chops slash Chaz said something. I can't remember what his name is. He was the warlord.
sure, that's a larpy fucking title.
He was the warlord, right? But he said something. He said if you sit down and talk to people, and what ends up happening, and I see this a lot, if you sit down and talk to people and you really get into things with them, you find that regardless of where you sit on the political spectrum, it's usually one or two things that divide you, and it's not everything.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I mean, like we didn't even touch Amy Coney Barrett and the Lochner era, which is fine, and I'm okay with letting that dog lie. It's but that can be another thing. I just like I said, I try as a leftist. My approach is we talk about material conditions, then we link it to theory. Because if I screech at you, you're gonna be like, "Wow, that was really cool." Block. Because I see you do it on Twitter all the time. You're ready to talk, then someone gets disrespectful, and you're like, you know what? I'm an adult. I'm not gonna be talked to like that. You be safe, okay? Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that.
I
Because
like to
someone's
make
gonna
mine. I like to do the Hotep Jesus, where I make a spectacle of my blocks.
Yeah, no, do it.
It's great.
Yeah, I've seen it. I see it from time to time. I haven't seen one. When I find one that's funny, I'll like it because I'm like, yeah, it's funny. Because I mean, listen, you've spent 2.5 hours talking to me, and not once have you been like, "You dirty fucking communist."
Should I
Ah!
start? Should I
No,
ask you
no,
to be deported to California with the
no.
rest of the commie friends?
I'm not a communist. I'm some flavor of socialism. Depends on where at they, because it's one of those things. There's a lot there, but I'm not a fan of, I'm not a communist. And some people,
California and then social New York.
sure, but I can do social New York. I got an adoptive father who lives up there. Nice guy. Hopefully he's fine. And hey, listen, if I catch COVID, well then more's the better for everyone else, right? Because then, depending on who you are, you'd be like, well, there's one less dirty red. No, it's like you got to make fun of yourself. Otherwise, people are going to be like, you take yourself too seriously.
All right, let's close with two things. Two things. Number one, an election prediction. Number two, we have California, Oregon, and Washington threatening to split off if Donald Trump wins or if Joe Biden doesn't follow through with his campaign promises.
Really?
What are our chances here?
Oh god. Okay, so I think Biden's gonna pull it out. I think it's gonna be a very close victory. I think he might just eke out at 270, and Donald Trump will pick up the rest of the states. Because that's what it's looking like with him having Nevada. Now, of course, there could be a flip in Nevada, and as we know from odds, and you've played XCOM, 98% is still 2% chance to fail, and it happens, and you're like, ah. So that's that. The second thing is as for Washington, Oregon, and California splitting off, I mean, it's the same thing with Texas. That's gonna that where Texas was threatening to secede a while ago. I don't know if that's still going on, but
Every time
whatever.
something happens, Texas
The
threatens to
same.
become their own
Okay.
republic again. So
Yeah, sure. Be the Republic of Texas. The only beef with that is that statement is made by people who may not understand the logistics of separating from a country, because then you have to parse out debt, you have to worry about passport systems, you have to worry, and that's just two things off the top of my head. Like
I mean,
your
they
president,
had the whole Cal exit thing last year.
and that went nowhere because
Absolutely nowhere, but yeah.
Gavin Newsom is like, please give me money, corporations, and corporations were like, yeah, we got you. You're Gavin Newsom, you're our boy.
Gavin
He's not
Newsom's also calling California its own nation state. What
sure.
is going on in California?
That's crazy because it's not very communist because Gavin Newsom, despite being a amazing progressive as he touts himself, definitely with a Democratic majority in both the state houses, blocked a reform bill for medicine prices to go to the VA rate. They blocked that. So I'm saying for that is not very left. That's very crony capitalist. And as far as I mean, hey, wolf, sheep's clothing. I mean, are you telling me a politician's not honest? Calling me shocked. You're shocked too. Anyways, but those are my Lexi. Now let me suggest one thing here. All right, I'm gonna do this. We're gonna do this together or opposite. I want you to say something nice about Joe Biden. There's got to be one policy he did that you enjoy, that you agreed with, and I'll do the same for Trump. And if you want me to go first, I will.
Ooh, oh God, a Joe Biden policy I agree with. Ooh,
I know.
ah.
I know it's hard.
You know what? I agree that at some point we have to switch off fossil fuels. I don't agree
Okay.
with how fast he wants to do it, but I agree at some point we have to because it is a limited resource. And you don't
Okay.
get to, we don't know if there is oil on the moon. We're trying to build a moon base. We don't know if there's oil on Mars, but we know the fucking sun's everywhere.
Yeah. It's actually 1 watt per meter squared in perfect conditions. Normally in North America, you get between 900 and 500 watts per square meter, and that's before you convert it down and lose losses through solar panels. Anyways, so now time for me. I like the fact that Trump spoke to Kim Jong Un without precondition, because if you can de-escalate conflict and there's less war, that means we're one step closer to getting Walmart into North Korea. And once Walmart's there, that's it. It's a wrap. We're done. The USA's culture is so hegemonic that every place we go either copies us or bends the knee to our culture. Hollywood movies are everywhere. Video games are everywhere. I like the fact that he talked to Kim Jong Un to potentially de-escalate a war situation.
Speaking of war situations, we're going to lose the drawdown of troops in Afghanistan and Iraq once Joe gets in, right?
Well, the drawdown of troops have been yo-yoing back and forth because Obama drew down and then he surged, and that's
Trump
gonna
hasn't
happen.
surged yet.
Well, he may not have the chance.
That's true. I just don't
So
think he will because he doesn't think it's a good business deal.
it's weird because there's trillions of dollars of mineral wealth in Afghanistan.
Yeah, but
So
we
I'm
can't
surprised
unless we take over the entire country. That's
yeah, which we can't because the Taliban controls more of the country than it did when we first got there. And again, one more year, gold watch. But hey, listen, that last one's called the demagogue test. If you try to make sure that someone isn't a hack, and nobody, a broken clock is right twice a day.
yeah.
So something's got to be right, and that's why I think you have more respectability than Josiah Rises or Tim Pool or Dave Rubin, some of your larger contemporaries, because they can't do that. At least not unbidden. At least not like, well, but actually he does this better, and it's like, okay, you were able to do it without qualifier. You were able to be like, yeah, we got to get off fossil fuels somehow. I think that's a good plan. So there it is.
Ooh. All right, give a shout out to your channel and stuff, man. So
All right, for
the
those
people who are going to
watching,
wait on 6 months to see this on BitChute can see it.
all right, so if anybody's still watching after this and has a desire to see me, I stream on Twitch at twitch.tv/Nimicry. That's Nimicry. Also, youtube.com/Nimicry. And I want to thank Rabbit for hosting me. It was a fun discussion.
course, of course. All right, boys and girls, that's it. I will see y'all tomorrow morning. Whenever in the century this gets done. I do 2 a day. You guys know this. So, bye, guys.